James won't admit it, he refuses to believe queer theory destabilizes normativity, gender binary, and the nuclear family. James blocks the truth, smears people who try to show him, creates an echo chamber for himself to reinforce his fantasy. He used to believe in something, what happened? Mills for liberty. Gnostic sex cult, building his own world. The Gnostic sex cult, unhinged from reality, totally lost in what can we do? But mock him relentlessly. It's not a Gnostic sex cult, James. No, it's not. Stop lying to your audience. No, it's not. It's not Gnostic, James. Mary Nardini tells us queer liberation means the annihilation of capitalism. Catch up, James. Whiteness means capitalism. Queer theory hates capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. Queer theory hates capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Everyone knows it's capitalism. The socialist knows capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. Whoa. The socialist knows capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Everyone knows it's capitalism. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. It's capitalism. To pocket all that money from the mills for liberty. The left hates capitalism, but James won't admit it. He refuses to believe queer theory stabilizes normativity, gender binary, and the nuclear family. But James blocks the truth, smears people who try to show him, creates an echo chamber for himself to reinforce his fantasy. Is to believe in something. What happens for liberty? Gnostic sex cult, building his own world. Gnostic sex cult, unhinged from reality. He's totally lost it. What can we do but mock him relentlessly?
What does I don't know. This might be coded, but I'm not sure. What does a Gnostic sex cult have to do with the far left's goal? This guy named Bot is going off about this Gnostic sex cult. What that?
And so we're just not going to answer that question.
Okay, so that's I figured that. So we're just okay. That's why I figured that. Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be a day that ends in Y if James Lindsay wasn't still mad. You know, Joshua pointed this out to me a while ago. So when James Lindsay blocked Reagan, does everyone remember? When James Lindsay, Reagan is the chief organizational officer of the cult because she's so organized and she has it all together. Reagan knows how to do like spreadsheets and databases and lists and all this stuff that I have no clue about. Reagan's also like the nicest person in the world. And like, if people think I'm like, Reagan is like the opposite of me. Everything that I am not in terms of being nice and cordial to people, Reagan like is just so, she does everything so beautifully and just like I aspire. And James Lindsay several months ago sent out a tweet to his entire like 500,000 followers on Twitter telling them all to block Reagan because she was part of some sort of conspiracy theory, because she was trying to teach people that that the goal of queer Marxism is to abolish the gender binary. And James doesn't like it when you hinge ideas back into reality. And so he sent out this tweet featuring Reagan, telling his entire audience to block her. And when he sent out that tweet, he explicitly said in that tweet, "I'm not going to speak about this again." Or something like, "This is the last time I'm going to talk about this." Well, here we are several months later, and James Lindsay is still talking about it. But I have to say, like, I'm not even mad today. I'm not even mad, because finally, for once, at long last, James is kind of sort of telling the truth. At long last, there is actually an accurate version of what happened on James Lindsay's Twitter feed. Because what James did earlier today was retweet the woman who has been stalking me for 4 years, poetry painter, aka Jill Fugman, aka Psycho. And I gotta tell you, I really have to. I'm genuinely not even mad about this, because literally all that Jill did was post a picture of a tweet that I sent that said, "If you're confused about why James Lindsay is working with troll accounts to discredit me, it starts with this meme. James refuses to say the goal of queer theory is to abolish capitalism. It's not a Gnostic sex cult, but we'll treat him that way if he wants." And when I say poetry painter's been stalking me, I mean that there have literally been multiple trips that I've made to the police station. I'm not just saying that. This is, and people who have been around a long time know that this is true. However, the problem is that I can't, there's nothing that the law does not protect me. So I've actually had to get very used to living in a world where I am stalked every single day of my life by this psychotic bitch. Because I've been to the police multiple times. There's nothing they can do. But again, like, I have to say, like, I mean, this is actually an accurate version of what I said. For once. I'm sorry, like, I knew when I asked Bot to make this meme, I knew it was going to come in handy. And I do not apologize. I think this is funny. And I think secretly James really likes it. And I think secretly James wants to be in that position, which is why he tweeted it in the first place. Because you gotta admit, like, there's no reason for someone to just tweet this just like as is with no commentary if you aren't, I don't know, a little turned on by it. So we all know that James, we now all know that James's thing with the big sword is just posturing, perhaps. And so this got sent out by Poetry Painter today. I don't even know exactly what point she was trying to make, other than my community made an awesome meme. And then James just retweeted it and said, "Yikes." Now, given the other day that James was on Benjamin Boyce's channel talking about us, and he was telling everyone that we are just doing a child's version of Marxism. And if you're just talking about capitalism, that is a child's version of Marxism. James's version of Marxism, where he's working with Lisa Logan to talk about how meditation and the law of attraction is an indoctrination into a secret UN globalist, Oprah-driven, Gnostic conspiracy theory. That's hinged into reality. But no, us talking about capitalism is not hinged into reality, and I find it kind of odd. I'll go look in a moment. I haven't looked. I don't look at the comments. Like, what? Like, I personally find James's audience to be retarded. It's like, it was so depressing to me anytime I look in James's like comments around this sort of stuff, because it's like, you see his audience and you know that they have no fucking clue what's going on because they bought into James's bullshit interpretation of what's going on. And it's like, they're the ones in a cult, yo. They're the ones that are not actually able to think for themselves. And so I got to tell you, I'm actually like, you know, I'm actually pretty pleased that James said this, because this at least is some acknowledgement on his feed that we should be saying capitalism. And Logan Lansing can have all the feelings he wants about that, and I don't really care, because Logan Lansing... Wait, seriously? Seriously? Okay, we'll look at that in a second. But first, what I want to say is this. We'll look at Logan's comment in a second. It'll be a pure reaction from me. But I found the timing of this so incredibly funny, because just today I released a couple of clips from the California Community College's Spy Stream that we did last week. For those of you who were not involved in Spy Stream last week, we basically infiltrated it was a 2-day queer liberation summit that was hosted by the Chancellor's Office of the California Community Colleges, which meant it was broadcast into every community college in the state of California. And we actually got some pretty good clips out of it. I released a couple of them last night / this morning. And I find it really ironic, because, well, James Lindsay and Logan Lansing are writing entire books about queer theory that do not say the word capitalism and do not explain to their audience at all that the goal of queer theory is to abolish capitalism. Let me show you one of the clips that we got from the Queer Liberation Conference hosted last week from the California Community Colleges, because we were in a workshop called My Pronouns Matter. It was about pronouns. This is a gender ideology conference. This was not a conference about Marxism. This was not a conference about economics. This was a gender ideology, queer theory conference in a session called My Pronouns Matter. Now, sometimes when I'm infiltrating these conferences, and there you can see it right there, the CCC LGBTQ plus summit, that's what we watched last week for 2 days on Spy Stream. And I sometimes like to instigate in the Q&A when we do these things. And I asked a couple of questions during this, because there was one slide in this presentation where they basically put up this slide that was talking about pronouns in relation to the patriarchy and white supremacy and colonialism and all that. And I was like, holy shit, this is an entire slide about capitalism. Now, they didn't say the word capitalism, but they said like patriarchy, white supremacy, all the words that we know mean capitalism, because we listen to the left more than James Lindsay can ever dare dream he will. And so I asked them, I said, can you guys speak to how capitalism interacts with all the systems at play in regards to pronouns? And they kind of gave me a throwaway answer at first. They were basically like, well, we're going to have to make some decisions about who we vote for in November. And I think we all know it's pretty important to disrupt the power structure, and who we vote for matters. And so they were kind of vague about it in the first answer. And so then what I did is I just prodded a little bit more, just poke them just a little bit. And I said, can you expand more on the capitalism piece? I think it would be really helpful to understand how that fits in. And given that James Lindsay, again, just the other day on Benjamin Boyce said, they're so silly. The capitalism argument is a child's version of Marxism. I just wrote a book about how queer theory is a Gnostic sex cult, and we don't mention capitalism once, because mentioning capitalism in relation to queer theory is a child's version of Marxism. And I don't know why I would ever lower myself to tell people that queer theory, the goal of queer theory is to abolish capitalism, because that's child's play. I would much rather talk about the Oprah, New World Order, Law of Attraction, social emotional learning, United Nations, meditation, Gnostic sex cult. Okay, he didn't actually say that, but he did say that it was childish for us to be talking about capitalism. Well, let me show you what happened when at a queer ideology, at a queer liberation conference, in a session about pronoun uses, I ask them, how does capitalism play into this? Let me just play you the clip.
I can touch a little bit on the last question about the capitalism piece. I'm really going to show my standings on a few certain topics within society, but capitalism is the root of all evil and is directly tied to upholding white supremacy and the patriarchy within society. If you look at the number of billionaires that exist within the United States, I would love for you to acknowledge what percentage of them are white men. I cannot tell you off the top of my head, but my estimation would probably be in the 90th percentile. So in that way, like, it really all comes down to power and control, and people who hold power and control, which currently in America is typically cisgendered, privileged, rich white men. They hold the power, and they want to uphold the power that they hold by moving towards a more inclusive society that acknowledges and respects all folks for who they are as their fabulous selves. It shifts that power, and it moves it away from being maintained by that system, and therefore it is all interconnected, and it always will be. And that is why money is also a really great way that you can advocate for change, whether it be through boycotts or supporting, LGBTQ plus owned businesses owned by people of color, indigenous owned businesses. When you travel, staying in spaces and hotels owned by local folk instead of really large corporations. These are all ways that you can continue moving towards that shift of a more inclusive society. And I'll pause because I don't want to go on a whole rant, but that's just a little piece.
So let me just, final thoughts about, power and privilege. I think with our intersections of our identities, we may hold some of these in different spaces. So I think there's something to be said with knowing where you can make these influences and also know where you can make these changes. So we may hold them in different spaces. And I just want you to be mindful of where that might be and how you may be agents of changes, because this is where we need to be. We need to be in those institutional conversations, in those, areas when we do documentation and changes where we give voice. So I think this is something that I think we can all kind of hopefully carry on and move into these areas. And if we know folks in these power and privileges, to kind of be kind of allies and kind of advocate alongside us. So I think there's some synergy there.
All right. You get the idea. So when I asked, and you guys can see an extended clip of that over on the Substack if you want to see like the entire interaction, but I wanted to get it down to just like brass tacks about it. So when I asked at a queer liberation conference in a session about pronouns, how does capitalism play into all this? They were more than willing to come right out and say, capitalism is the root of all evil. So if James thinks that he's like owning me in some way by retweeting this meme in which I am literally whipping him as to entice him to finally and at long last tell his audience that queer theory, the goal of queer theory, queer Marxism, is to abolish capitalism because they believe that capitalism created the gender binary, which is men and women. It put men in the workplace, women in the home, doing the unpaid labor of raising the nuclear family. It is also trying to abolish the nuclear family because queer Marxists believe that the nuclear family is the literal means of production for capitalism, and that you cannot abolish capitalism without abolishing the nuclear family because of social reproduction theory. I really don't think I'm asking too much. The queer Marxists are saying capitalism. We're saying capitalism. Literally, the only people in this equation that are not saying capitalism and not acknowledging that it's capitalism are the two people who wrote the book on the queering of the American child, which now all these conservatives are reading and giving all these conservatives exactly the wrong idea. That's like the Pied Piper piping the conservatives right off the goddamn cliff because it's not actually telling them what the real problem is. James Lindsay and Logan Lansing are literally the only people that are not saying capitalism. Now, I guess I could make memes about Logan Lansing, but I just don't care enough about him. I don't, Logan Lansing is not as influential as James. And so, yes, do I hope that Logan Lansing is going to eventually come around and acknowledge the truth? Well, sure. I mean, it would be nice to know that Logan Lansing is not just a conservative grifter that's out to make money by riling up his audience about some mystery Gnostic sex cult that only he and James Lindsay know the hidden knowledge of. That would be really nice. But the fact of the matter is that James is the one with the audience. James is the one that has taken on this responsibility of saving humanity from the Gnostic fucking sex cult. So I'm sorry, this is his responsibility. And if he doesn't want to tell his audience the truth, then I will tell his audience the truth. And if James Lindsay wants to retweet hilarious memes where I'm literally dominating his ass, getting him to bend the knee to my will, I just kind of think he's foreshadowing what is almost inevitable. We are going, if we just keep going, James Lindsay has shown us over the last several weeks that if we just keep on his ass, we are breaking him more and more and more. He's losing it more and more and more. And eventually he's going to bend. And I feel great, James. Bro, you're doing exactly what I want you to do. You're literally doing what I want you to do, James. I want you to be sharing this with your audience. So keep playing right into the palm of my hand, bro. Like, it's like I really am. I'm not really a dominatrix in real life, but it's kind of like I am, isn't it? It's kind of like I'm actually getting James Lindsay to eat out of the palm of my hand and do exactly what I want him to do. And I will keep doing this until James is finally honest with his audience about what is going on. And if he wants to continue to lie to his audience, I will just keep going. And the more that James tweets about me, the more he exposes real content to his audience. And the more that James tweets about me, the more people are going to come over here and be like, what the fuck is that crazy bitch doing? And then they're going to start to see. So keep eating, James. Keep nibbling out of the palm of my hand, darling. I will keep playing you like a fiddle. I don't really care. I'm not the one with the head injury, James. But people said that Logan Lansing was making some comments. Let's see. Oh my God. Imagine thinking you can summarize queer theory as abolishing capitalism and thinking this offers your audience any useful insight into defeating it. Logan. Proving that Logan Lansing hasn't bothered to do the basic bit of research into what my argument actually is. It's almost like Logan Lansing doesn't actually look into the things that he claims to care about and the things that he claims to know about. Maybe Logan is just upset that he wasn't the one in the meme. Could that be it? We're not going to look at... I've been really disappointed in Yuri Bezmenov's ghost lately. I mean, additionally, reducing everything to capitalism misses several important consequences of queer theory. No, it doesn't, bro. No, it doesn't. The only people that believe that reducing everything to abolishing capitalism overlooks several elements of queer theory are the people who do not understand what those elements are or why they're doing them, Yuri Bezmenov. You want to use that name, bro? Then you should understand that the reason that they want to abolish the gender binary is because they believe that capitalism created the gender binary. They're using a lot of different methods to do that. Abolishing the gender binary is literally what non-binary references. Non-binary means no binary. The fact that there are so many non-binary, gender fluid, genderqueer kids running around right now is a reflection of queer Marxists integrating themselves into the education system to try to abolish the gender binary. And secondarily, because they want to abolish the gender binary, that's also an attack on the nuclear family. You're going to tell me that attacks on parental rights are not an important issue right now? You're going to tell me that I haven't explained attacks on parental rights 19 ways from goddamn Sunday? And the reason that the left wants to abolish the nuclear family and is using attacks on parental rights in order to do it is because, asshole, the left believes that parental rights are a form of private property. Private property means capitalism. And if you don't understand this, Yuri Bezmenov's ghost, You do not understand the left. Really disappointed in you, bro. Really, really disappointed. You got to stop sucking James Lindsay's cock so much, because apparently there's something in James Lindsay's brain damage cum that's like getting into your system when you're sucking his cock so much that like is just short circuiting your brain, and you're not able to actually see that the root cause of literally everything that you're going to refer to is abolishing capitalism. Just get off your knees, bro. It's not that hard. Just stand up. Get off your knees. Let's see. James says, it sort of does, actually. If you educate people properly on communism and then get them to combat that as they should be, then the recognition that all these intersectional causes, including queer theory, are truly about communism, destabilization, and revolution at their core will defeat the root cause. Yes, James Mason! James Mason needs to be in my audience. Someone needs to go. Someone come invite James Mason to a spy stream. Someone come invite him to the channel. James Mason is absolutely smart enough to be in my audience. And then we got, oh, look, Stony Baloney. Stony Baloney zooming in with the anarchist literature. Stony Baloney for the win! You got to go way back. I don't know what that is. Oh, look at it. Carlin is nuts. Oh my God. Oh my God. Holy shit. This person is literally agreeing with me while at the same time calling me nuts. Watch this. Okay, but I'm confused. James, you always say the issue is never the issue. The issue is the revolution. Isn't that essentially saying what they want to usher in as a communist revolution, which would by default abolish capitalism? This person literally agreed with me and then said I was crazy. Yo, all right. Well, you know, I keep telling you guys, James Lindsay's audience is just not they're not the brightest bulbs in the box. You know, James caters to the sub 100 IQ audience. This is the difference between James and I. Only dumb people who want to feel smart listen to James, because they actually convince themselves that they understand what he's saying when they have no goddamn clue what he's saying, but it sounds really smart, and James like flirts with them and all this stuff. And so the dumb women, usually middle age, usually with completely unsatisfactory sex lives, gravitate to James, and they can be in his audience and they can feel smart and they can say words that they don't understand and all that. I cater to the above 100 IQ audience, and you don't even need to be a woman. You definitely don't need to be a middle-aged woman. I would say I have a good 50-50 split of men and women in my audience, but I do tend to appeal more to gay men than straight men, but that's okay. That's all right. You know, it's okay to serve different audiences. James can totally serve all of the QAnon retired moms who have now moved over to the Moms for Liberty after they got out of their QAnon stage. Now they're Moms for Liberty conspiracy theorists. That is a perfect audience for James. I think this is great. I'm just going to serve different people. So, nice try, James. Thank you for retweeting a meme in which I look great. And if anyone is interested in the clip that I played in this, you can find this over on my Substack. Remember, James doesn't want you to know that actual queer activists in the real world are literally teaching last week on the taxpayer dime that capitalism is the root of all evil. But you can find that over on my Substack, which is Carlin, KARLYN .substack.com. I also have another clip that I posted there, which this clip is actually crazy. If you didn't get a chance to see this clip, I would definitely recommend doing it. This is a clip from a different session from the same conference called Queering the Spectrum, the Intersections of Neurodiversity and LGBTQ plus identities. And in this clip, the trainer literally says, autistic kids are inherently queer biologically. Literally says that. You can head over to the Substack to see that clip, and that'll be available to you as well. And guys, if you do want to support the work I'm doing and keep me in business, because my work is 100% funded by you, then head over to my Substack and sign up as a member for $8 a month, $80 a year. I really do appreciate it. Your membership allows me to do things like taking 2 days to do a spy stream infiltration. By the way, we did that spy stream infiltration in which I was streaming over 4 hours a day just on that one thing. Well, James was tweeting nonsense about me on Twitter. James was tweeting Photoshop screenshots, and he was elevating stalkers and all this shit. So I was getting this shit slung at me from James Lindsay on Twitter. I still infiltrated a 2-day queer liberation conference. And the only reason that I'm able to do that is because people like you who actually care about what the truth is, unlike James Lindsay, unlike Logan Lansing, unlike their audiences, you guys allow me to take you inside these trainings to show you what's really going on when the left believes that you're not listening to them. So if you want more trainings, if you want more infiltrations, if you want more spy streams, head over to the Substack. Again, Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, and sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. I really do appreciate it. All right, guys, with that, I want to show you what we're actually watching today because this is a happy hour. Welcome to happy hour. Who's got some beer? I do. It's been sitting out on my desk for half an hour, though. That was kind of dumb. I should have put it in the fridge. I didn't know I was going to be talking for that long. Happy hour is a stream that we do on Fridays where we watch a woke training from start to finish, and I drink beer, and we talk about the training. And we decode the training and we look at what's really going on. And so I do have some fabulous beer that I'm going to tell you about in a minute. But first, I want to show you exactly what we're watching. We are watching a training that is about a week old. It was uploaded on April 26, 2024. Introduction to Sochi. Sochi is sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. And this was actually for an organization called JFCS of Greater Mercer County. JFCS is Jewish Family and Children's Services. And this is located in Princeton, New Jersey. And one of the reasons I chose this training is, look at the thumbnail of the training right here. The training is actually called Affirming Our Youth. It's for kids. And look at the logo that it has right here. High tops. Does anyone recognize what high tops is? Does anyone remember where we've seen high tops before? Anyone? I'll give you a hint. It was another spy stream that we did. It was a relatively recent, not like it was within the last 6 months or so. A relatively recent spy stream infiltration we did. We came across an organization called High Tops. Let me show you what High Tops did. We got High Tops presenting at the National Sex Ed Conference, and I got 2 clips of them that are important. In the first clip we got of High Tops, we got them explicitly saying that surgeons are performing top surgery on 16-year-old girls, and isn't that just great? That was presented at the National Sex Ed Conference earlier this year in December. We got them saying that. And then we got them showing off the Packers, the fake dicks that they sell to kids' schools, so that when your kid goes to the school nurse or the school psychologist and they say, I think I'm trans, they're given one of these fake dicks to practice with. I'm not kidding. You can go see the video. They come in different colors and tones and actually rigidness too. And did you guys know that some of these dicks are just for aesthetics, but you can have sex with some of them. Some of them come in a harder plastic where you can actually penetrate. I'm not kidding. These are sold to your kids' public schools, to the school psychologist or the school nurse by an organization called High Tops. High Tops, apparently, High Tops, by the way, is also located in Princeton, New Jersey. High Tops is apparently working with the Jewish Family and Children's Services in Princeton, New Jersey, to talk about affirming youth, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression. And that's what we're going to be watching today. We're going to be watching their training from like a week ago. So we're going to see what's going on. Let's see if High Tops has actually changed their tune or if they have not changed their tune. I can't recognize anyone right off the bat from High Tops, but I'm sure we're going to get some people in there. So that's what we're doing. Before we get into that, I do need to tell you about my beer, because per our happy hour tradition, I'm going to tell you what beer I went to get at the beer store, and you're going to vote on which one you want me to drink first. Now, this first one I got purely because of the can, because you guys know I have a cool beer can collection on the other side of this wall, because some beer can designs are just like rad now. Like they're getting creative. I love it. I couldn't resist. Even if this had been an IPA, I probably would have gotten this beer just for the gremlin. All right? Just for the gremlin. This is called Gremlin Mode, and it is a sour ale with pineapple, mango, peach, coconut, and vanilla. That's going to be our gremlin beer. Next up, we have, this is kind of like a basic beer. This is from Left Hand, which Left Hand is actually a pretty good, Left Hand is decent. I'm not going to lie. Left Hand is okay. They do a good milk stout, like a traditional milk stout. I think you can get it in quite a few places, actually. This is a chai milk stout. I don't think I've ever had this version before. And it's nitro too, so this is going to be a little bit like Guinness, where like you have the CO2 canister in the beer that goes off and it makes it a little bit thicker. It's obviously better if you get it on tap when it's on nitro rather than a can, but a can will do. So that is our next choice. We have our chai milk stout from Left Hand Brewing. And then our next one is an old favorite of mine, the classic Some Brewing Company Peanut Butter Jelly Whoopie Pie. Now, Some Brewing Company has several different whoopie pie varieties. They have a traditional whoopie pie stout. They have a peanut butter whoopie pie stout. And this one is the Peanut Butter Jelly Whoopie Pie Stout. And that is option number 3. And our last option, I'm not sure why I got this. I think I was just feeling uninspired and, it was there. But it's kind of cool. It's not bad. It's got a leprechaun on it. This is from Talks Brewing Company. And it is an imperial stout, which means alcoholic. And it is an imperial stout with coffee, cocoa nibs, vanilla, and Irish cream. So it's going to be our Irish cream imperial stout. So I'm going to put those into the chat. Again, we have the Gremlin Sour, which is going to be like mango and pineapple and vanilla and very fruity. We've got our Left Hand Chai Milk Stout. We've got our Peanut Butter Jelly Whoopie Pie. Or we have our Irish Coffee Stout. Let me know in the chat which one you would like me to drink first. And while you're doing that, I'm going to remind you to mount your like button for me. If you don't feel like mounting the like button, you can high five the like button. You can put your arm around the like button. You can kiss the like button on the cheek, whatever you would like to do. But please do something with that like button, because as you know, I am deeply shadow banned on YouTube, and mounting the like button lets YouTube know, or recommends that YouTube actually suggests my content to people for once. This might be a little off topic, but do you remember when all those people were attracted to you after? Yes, I do remember that. Yep, I do. Yep, wasn't fun for me. All right, let me see. Oh, super chats. Thank you, Rottweiler. Thank you. I apologize. Before we get started, can we take a moment to talk about the Daily Wire? Oh God. All right, let me make myself big on the screen. You guys can vote on the beer for another minute while I answer these super chats. Can we take a moment to talk about the Daily Wire being a cowardly organization? Ben Shapiro should have just bit the bullet and debated Candace Owens. So for those of you who don't know, basically, when Candace Owens challenged Ben Shapiro to a debate, and Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring pretended to publicly accept the debate, what happened is they went behind the scenes and asked a judge to put a gag order on Candace Owens, and they used the fact that Candace Owens challenged Ben Shapiro to a debate as evidence for a gag order. So that debate between the Daily Wire, between Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens, is never going to happen, because Ben Shapiro got a gag order on Candace Owens because she challenged him to a debate. And it's just like, if anyone trusts the Daily Wire at this point, I just don't know what to tell you. I really don't. Like, go over to the, like, if I'm sorry, if you trust the Daily Wire, you're not smart enough to be in my audience. Honestly and truly. They are an Israel first propaganda outlet They do not believe in the truth. They do not believe in intellectual honesty. They do not believe in reason. And anyone supporting them and anyone working with them at this point should be suspect, so far as I'm concerned. Like, I'm never going to tell anyone who they can and can't listen to, but like, if you trust the Daily Wire or the people working there after what you've seen displayed in the last couple months, I would rethink that strongly. That's my opinion. And then we have one from Rottweiler. Rottweiler says, I think James Lindsay was taken aback because Benjamin Boyce didn't take his side. He actually threw a few playful jabs, asked questions, and didn't ignore super chats. Well, I think that's interesting. Benjamin has always been a level-headed bloke. But he also is just like very calm. Like, he's not going to be confrontational. Benjamin Boyce is not like me, right? He's not going to be like confrontational like I am. But I have a lot of respect for the guy. I think he's done a really, I actually, in another world in which James Lindsay wasn't being a raging asshole, I would have actually liked to listen to that conversation. But I'm not gonna suffer through that. Like, I'm just not, but I am, and I think the documentary that Benjamin did about Evergreen is still one of the greatest things produced documenting woke culture of anything, of like literally anything. I really do believe that. He did just such a wonderful and thorough job with that. I highly recommend it. If you have not watched Benjamin Boyce's documentary about like the full, you got to watch the whole thing. It's like 17 hours long or something, but you got to watch the whole thing. It really is quite revelatory. And I'm sure it's just like so highly relevant. And I'm sure if I went back and watched the whole thing again, and I've watched the whole thing through like several times, I'm sure I would see things today that I didn't even see back then, given how much more socialism I've listened to since then. It might even be an interesting exercise. But I just want people to know, like, I don't have any beef with Benjamin Boyce, I don't think. I don't know, maybe he has beef with me, but I don't have beef with him. My beef is with James Lindsay. I think Benjamin Boyce does a wonderful job. All right, let's see. Which beer am I drinking? Gremlin! Awesome. That's the one I wanted to drink. Not even close. Excellent. Let me get this poured. I hope it's colorful. I bet it's going to be pretty. I bet it's going to be yellow. I can smell the yellow from here. Look at this beer. Oh, it's so pretty. It smells so tropical. It's like being on a cruise. I'm about to go on a cruise. Cheers, everyone. Happy Friday. All right, let's get into it. Let's get down to it. Gross. What are you talking about? Human Centipede probably drinks IPAs. Probably an IPA drinker. That's okay. We're going to forgive him. No one's perfect, Human Centipede. All right, let's get down to business, guys. We are watching the introduction to Sochi, Sexual Orientation, Gender Identity, and Gender Expression from Jewish Family and Child Services of Mercer, New Jersey. Have a good one, Ingrid. Take care. All right, let's get this party started.
With us tonight. If you didn't get that message like I did, we are recording this meeting. We're recording it so we can share it with others that were not able to join us tonight. So again, thank you for joining us. We are very excited and happy to be partnering with High Tops tonight. I'm going to introduce Stacy, who is the Director of Education, to lead us in this program. There is time for questions and answers, so you can just put them in the chat. They will be monitored by Shirley. And I'm sorry that I'm speaking on behalf of the Clinics Department.
Stacy! This is Stacy, guys. Stacy, who also did the National Sex Ed Conference training. Same person that was very excited that 16-year-olds were getting top surgery. That's who we're watching right now. I was hoping it was going to be Stacy. Stacy has a PhD. Dr. Stacy. About to teach us about gender affirming youth. Not Stacy's mom, but we're not doing that, okay? We're not getting that song stuck in my head right now.
But Shirley is feeling a little bit under the weather tonight. So again, we thank you all for coming. We think that this program is incredibly important and timely. And we encourage you, like I said, to ask any questions as questions arise. So I'm going to introduce Stacy, again, to walk us through the intro to sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. And thank you, Stacy, for partnering with us.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Hello, and to everyone who celebrated Passover, I hope you had a good Passover. Super happy to be here tonight. My name is Stacy Robustelli. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Director of Education at High Tops. I have been at High Tops, and hopefully everybody can see my screen without any difficulties. But I've been at High Tops for 6 years as the Director of Education. I am an educational psychologist by training. I earned my doctorate from Rutgers in 2006.
Of course you
I've
did.
worked in a variety of capacities. I was a research scientist. I was a professor. And I would say most happily, the Director of Education at High Tops. I am also a very proud member of the LGBTQ plus community. I will also be saying queer community, so I'm going to use those terms interchangeably. And I am a parent to twins. So I share all of that with you because it's important to understand the many lenses that I bring to this work. And, I will be answering questions from the perspective of an expert in the field, as well as from somebody who came out later in life and is a member of the queer community, and again, as a parent. So what I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about High Tops before we dive in. We are a nonprofit organization. We are located in Princeton, and we have been for 30.
Let's see, Massage Chair Wellness Allison. Do we know if these organizations are either funded by Planned Parenthood or Big Pharma? I don't know. I have not looked into the funding sources of these. I don't have any reason to think they are right this second, but they very well could be. It wouldn't actually surprise me if that was the case, but maybe someone else wants to look into that. Again, this is High Tops out of Princeton, New Jersey. Actually, Project Veritas did an expose on High Tops like last year before they went under. So that might be something to refer back to as well.
37 years. But since the great pivot of COVID, we do a lot of work online, so we far exceed the footprint of Princeton. And our mission
is to
provide inclusive and youth-informed sex education and support, and to build affirming communities to foster strong and healthy young people of all identities.
Hang on.
Now you'll notice,
guys, I'm gonna be very honest. I've seen a lot of conservatives lately talking about the NGOs, and I've seen a lot of people making assumptions. I'm not saying you're doing this, Laura. I'm using you as an example just because you said it, but I'm not directing this at you specifically. I'm saying more generally, so please don't take this personally. I've seen a lot of conservatives talking about how everything is funded by an NGO, and they're making that as like a base assumption that everything is funded by an NGO, and that's just not the truth. A lot of far left organizations are entirely self-funded through dues, through donations, through events, through publishing, stuff like that. And so please don't make the assumption that just because your favorite influencer says something that's true either, because a lot of them don't actually look into it. So I would like, is it true that Planned Parenthood and organizations like that do fund things like this? Sure. Yes. But is that always the case? No, it's not. And we need to make sure we're holding ourselves accountable to being intellectually honest about the situation. A lot of far left organizations, guys, they really, like, you got to remember, when you're on the far left, this is your identity. This is who you are. This is a core part of your being. For those of you who are Christian, think about how being a Christian is a core part of who you are. It is a core part of your being, okay? The far left believes the same thing. What that means is they are actually very clear a lot of the times that they do not want like that type of funding because it's going to corrupt their political movement. And they do not want to corrupt their political movement because that is who they are. So every single time that someone is screaming about the outside big funding and they're only doing this for money, it's not true. It's just not true. And we need to start making sure we're being honest about that.
that there are a number of words that are underlined there, and that's intentional because those are the very cornerstones of our mission. And I just want to take a moment to describe them for you. So we're inclusive, which means that we really care about giving equitable access to all people. Perhaps what sets us apart from a lot of other organizations is that many of our programs are designed by youth and for youth. In fact, we just had the Trans Youth Forum, and that is, the only conference in the state of New Jersey that is designed by trans youth.
Trans Youth Forum. Can someone look that up?
Families.
Trans Youth Forum
and then
in New
finally,
Jersey.
We are affirming to people of all identities. So a lot of folks wonder, what does it really mean to be affirming? And I would say at its very simplest, it's acknowledging a person's truth when they speak it. And I'm going to dive a little bit more deeply into that and its meaning as we move forward.
You couldn't find it, Bot? Thank you.
So in terms of what we offer, we do have free weekly support groups for youth and adults. Our youth support groups are for ages 11 up to 21. And for our youngest group, which is ages 11 to 13, you do not need to be queer identifying. It's
you found it. Well done.
Group and an opportunity to learn more. For those who are 14 to 17, we have a group specifically for queer youth, and we have another group specifically for trans and non-binary youth. And then we also have a young adults group, which, the goal of that is for queer folks to be mentors in our community. We also have a free weekly support group for the parents of trans and non-binary youth. Again, all of those are free. All of those are in a hybrid format. So if you have any young queer folks who are looking for community, please send them our way.
Thank you, Reagan.
We do a lot of educational programming. So we're in lots of different schools as well as corporations and other non.
By the way, this is kind of inside baseball, but I was alerted earlier that something was wrong with the Unwoke wiki. I think the problem may be fixed, but I'm not sure. I didn't spend a lot of time looking into it because I had to do the stream, but I think I may have fixed it. So if someone could check and let me know if the Unwoke wiki is fixed on your end, that would be appreciated. And if it's not, I'll just fix it later. I don't think it's not going to be a hard problem to solve if it's not fixed. I just didn't have time to do it right now.
Profits. And, some of the special things that we offer, as I said, Trans Youth Forum, we have our High Tops Princeton Half Marathon each year. We hold a queer prom, and we have something called the Closet. So for many youth who want to get gender affirming clothing and who maybe can't afford it, we provide it for free. So that's our information if you want to check us out online. Okay, so before we dive in, I just have a few caveats and requests, and then we can get started. So the first thing is, we are learning about sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression tonight. And those are all identities. And though many people assume that those are queer identities, the truth is if you identify as a human being, you also have a sexual orientation, a gender identity, and expression. So this is actually relevant to everybody. I encourage you to use the language you have to ask questions, to voice any comments or insights. I'm not expecting you to know all the language that's out there. That's why I'm here. It's to meet you where you're at and guide you in your journey. So please don't refrain from asking a question because you're concerned about how best to ask it. I want this to be a safe and a brave space, but I also want it to be a learning space. So let's normalize getting it wrong as an opportunity to learn. Finally, I do want to say that this is not a forum in which we all need to agree. I love diversity of opinion, thoughts, and insights. As long as we're respectful in how we engage in dialogue, that's what matters. I just ask that we be mindful of other people's feelings. And then finally, please engage in self-care. I'm going to go over some statistics that might be triggering to you. And so if for any reason you're feeling uneasy, take a moment, take a breath, walk away from the screen, and then feel free to come back at any time. Okay, so all that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about what this workshop is and what it isn't. So this workshop is meant to be a dip your toe in the water kind of experience. right? So you're meant to learn just a little bit about a lot of different topics. It is not meant to be a deep dive. Okay, so for those of you who are new to this material, I hope that you walk away with your curiosity piqued, your awareness raised. And for those of you who may be more familiar with this material, I invite you, if you are advanced, to join me in a leadership role, share your own insights and experiences. And then finally, it's important to understand that most of what we do in education at High Tops is not a one and done, right? So this is a starting point and by no means an end point, right? You're going to walk away. We're going to go through a lot of things. You're not going to walk away kind of knowing everything. But if your curiosity is piqued and you'd like to know more, then I feel like I've done my job. I also want to say, please participate in any way that you feel most comfortable. So if you're most comfortable unmuting and talking to me, that's totally fine. If you feel most comfortable with the chat, use the chat feature. I have it up here. And, so I'm fine if you stop me, if you need to ask any questions.
Thank you, Bot.
I'm pretty relaxed in that respect. Okay, so let's get started. We have three main goals tonight. The first is to talk about what it means to be affirming and why that's so very important, not just for youth, but for everybody. We'll also explore these SOGI identities and related terminology. And then we'll finish with some of the implications for young people in particular, why this is so important. When we start with what it means to be affirming, as I said earlier, it's accepting a person's truth when they speak it. Said another way, it's believing people when they tell you who they are, even if the person they are at the moment might change. When we think about ways that we can be affirming with the language that we use, let me give you some examples. And I'll take kind of a typical situation. What do you say if somebody comes out to you? If somebody says to you, I'm gay, for example. Here are some examples of affirming language and some non-affirming language. So folks, probably the biggest thing I can impress upon you is if you memorize this one statement / question, you're in the best space to affirm someone who has just come out to you. And that is, thank you for trusting me with this. How can I support you? So I want to speak from the perspective of a parent for the moment. As a parent, right, many folks assume that their kids are not queer identifying. And so it might be a surprise if their child comes out to them.
Slime.
And I really want to give you permission to feel all the things that you might feel if a child comes out to you. But if you can do your best, even amidst all those feelings, to say, thank you for trusting me with this. How can I support you? That is probably one of the best things that you can do. One of the examples of what not to say in that moment might be, you're a little bit young. This might just be a phase. Now, I want to speak to the truth of some of that, right? You're correct. It might be a phase for somebody. But when we're affirming, we meet the person exactly where they're at and believe them. So how they feel right then and there is that they are queer. And by acknowledging that, thanking them, because it is a huge sign of trust that they're telling you, we want to hold space for the fact that people do in fact change. Think about yourself, or I'll use myself as an example. I'm 49. I am not the same person I was at 15 or at 25 or even at 35. In fact, I didn't come out until I was 40. So, with young folks, especially folks who are going through puberty, what is central to pubertal development is identity development, figuring out who you are. So holding space for that identity to change is something that's really important. Another thing that I would often say is a great thing, affirming way to be.
Here's the thing, Stacey. Here's the thing. I would believe you more if I hadn't seen you on video talking about how great it is that 16-year-olds can get top surgery. Because I literally have let's just watch it real quick. I just want to remind people that I have quite literally seen Stacy on video from the National Sex Ed Conference last December saying that it was really great that they could get top surgery at 16 years old. Let's watch.
Then we have surgeries, which it's important to note, thinking about these kinds of surgeries, these aren't going to be done again overnight, like Stacy was saying about puberty blockers and things like that. Most top surgeries, or most surgeons in general who are going to perform top or bottom surgeries, will not perform them on somebody who is under 18, which is also, something for us to keep in mind when we're thinking about these options. But
one thing I do want to say, Hannah, is it actually, I will say, I've noticed, again, my own child is trans, and there are surgeons now that are willing, of course, with parental consent, to start top surgeries at age of 16, because there's more data coming out that, because of dysphoria, and, it really can be in the person's best interest to do it a little younger. So you're right. Originally, it was definitely more of like, you've got to be 18. But now with top surgery in particular, it is, happening younger with some surgeons.
Yeah, which we love that.
We love that. We love that. And did you guys hear Stacy saying that her own child is trans? And Stacy didn't come out as queer until the age of 40? All right, Stacy. Holding space for children to change. Yep.
Just let somebody know, hey, I'm excited for you. Thank you for sharing that with me. As opposed to saying something like, are you sure? Okay, so these are just great examples of affirming language. Let me give you some examples of affirming practices, things you can do now to show people that you're an affirming person. And I would say the first thing is normalizing introducing yourself with pronouns. So when I introduced myself, I said my name was Stacy. I use she, her pronouns, right? What we want to do is kind of reduce the assumptions that we make about folks based on what they look like. So by sharing your pronouns, you're taking that assumption out. The other thing that one can normalize is asking a person for their name and for their pronouns, and also leaving space to say, if you're not comfortable sharing your pronouns, that's fine too. Another thing that we can do to show that we are an affirming person is to take stock of the assumptions that we do make about a person's sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. Because folks, the truth is we all make assumptions. It's about becoming aware of the assumptions we make and how they affect how we treat others that contributes to change. Another thing that we can do, and this one I have to say, folks, is often so hard for people, use as much gender inclusive language as possible. So notice in my language tonight, I didn't say, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, right? I said, good evening, folks.
Why would we
nice
say
to
ladies
see
and
everybody.
gentlemen?
Right? Because when we, a lot of times we gender.
Alexa, be quiet.
I'm sorry? Oh, I think you meant to stay muted. I'm going to mute you for a second. So the more we can use gender inclusive language.
So according to Logan Lansing, I'm not giving people actionable information about what to do when I tell them that queer theory is about abolishing capitalism. But what if I told you that the reason that Stacy is pushing this idea of using non-gendered language, which, by the way, we see this all over the place. Every single time you see a training come out from the federal government or in the military, or I got the mayor's office of Washington, D.C. saying that you shouldn't be using gendered language. I got a child services organization out in California saying you shouldn't be using gendered language. So what if I told people that the reason that you're seeing all these trainings come up where they're saying you need to use inclusive language around gender so that you're not excluding anyone. We have Walt Disney getting rid of saying, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. They don't say that anymore. What if I told people the reason is that queer Marxists, queer theorists want to abolish the gender binary, which is getting rid of men and getting rid of women, creating an entire world full of they, thems, of gender fluid, gender queer people whose gender is constantly changing as easy as they change an outfit. And not only are they teaching that in school to your kids using penguin videos where the penguins change their gender identity as easily as they change their outfit, but they're also doing this in DEI training all over the place, funded by the federal government. And the reason they're doing this is because the goal of queer Marxism is to abolish the gender binary, because they believe that capitalism created the gender binary. I just explained to you more practical information than Logan Lansing and James Lindsay gave you in that entire goddamn book. And Logan Lansing wants to pretend on Twitter she's just not giving any practical information. So what? It's about abolishing capitalism. Well, Logan, do you understand that the reason they want to abolish capitalism is because they believe that capitalism created the gender binary, and all this non-gendered language bullshit that's been popping up for years is the influence of queer Marxism? Why aren't you explaining that, Logan? Why don't people know that? Why are people continuing to be surprised all the goddamn time about why do they keep doing this? Why do they keep doing this? Why do they keep doing this? Because they're queer Marxists. That's why. And if you can't identify them in the real world based on the language, then you don't really understand what queer theory is.
Better. And that can be difficult. I will tell you the way that I still slip up, and I've been doing this work for years, is sometimes referring to young folks as guys, like, hey guys, how you doing? Right? But there's so many times in which we unnecessarily gender things. And then finally, another way that we can be affirming is to advocate for others, right? So if you're a person who's not queer identifying, right, that is in some ways a privilege that we have, right? So if you can advocate for others. So for one example could be, as you learn more about, let's say, inclusive policies, maybe look at your own organization and say, gee, do we have protections for people based on their sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression? Do we have a space, let's say a bathroom space, for somebody who doesn't identify as male or female, right? So there are ways that we can help advocate for others in a way that's affirming. How are we all doing? Any questions, comments, or concerns so far? Okay, great.
Yes, actually, I do have something. Can you hear me all right?
I can, yes.
Yeah, I have, maybe this isn't the right place to bring it up, but I have a real problem using the plural they when we're talking about a individual. And someone said that there was some words that were made up for that, but it's not being used. Can you go into that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And if it's okay with you, I am gonna get to that, and I have a slide.
Okay, if you can get to it, that's all right.
Yeah, so I'm gonna hold off, and then I'm absolutely gonna answer that. I'm so glad you asked the question. Okay, so
Grandma's confused.
This is the part where it starts getting, even more real. Why is it important to be affirming, especially to youth? So what I'm showing you here is a graph. And what this shows you on the left-hand side, you're going to see battling symptoms of depression, being bullied at school, skipping school because somebody feels unsafe. And this is taken from the CDC, right? Every 2 years, the CDC puts out a youth risk surveillance survey for youth throughout the entire United States. And they ask a ton of questions, and they want to get a better sense of the kinds of negative health outcomes that youth are experiencing in the United States. So based on 180,000 youth, what you see here in this graph are the percentage of youth who are experiencing depression, who are skipping school because they feel unsafe, and so forth. And the top line, which is kind of a yellowish orange, shows you the percentage of youth that do not identify as queer, who experience these things. So when we take the first one, people who battle symptoms of depression, we see that about, let's say, 27% of these 180,000 youth experience depression. Now, when you look at that same part of the graph and you look at the pink line, which is the second line, the green line, which is the third line, and the blue line, that's the fourth line, those numbers represent the percentage of queer youth who experience depression. And when you look across,
Jotter Prime says, am I mistaken in my understanding that the logical conclusion of these ideas is that we will completely strip gender from everyone and ultimately all become a communist they? Yes, exactly, Jotter Prime. That is exactly what they want you to have, what they want to happen, because queer Marxists believe that the only way to achieve gender equity is to abolish the gender binary, abolish it entirely. And if you make everyone a they, them, then you have achieved gender equity. Everyone is a comrade. Everyone is the same. Equity means sameness. It means that no one has any more or any less than everyone else. Everyone is the same level of poor. Everyone is the same level of starving. No, exactly. Horizontal power. No hierarchies. That's real, by the way. That's actually what they're trying to do.
all of those negative health outcomes, what you'll see is that queer youth experience these health outcomes more than twice the amount as non-queer youth. Okay, so there's data here that's on a large scale that's showing you how much more at risk queer youth are for these kinds of experiences. And then when we move into suicidality, it's even more staggering. So for the number of queer youth or percentage of queer youth who either attempt suicide or seriously consider suicide compared to non-queer youth, it is staggering.
Hang on. But what about trans allies who identify as one side or the other side of the binary? How do they get rid of them? Okay, so so this is why we need to distinguish between trans and queer. You always have to remember that trans and queer are not the same. And the queer Marxists try to confuse you because what they've done is they've taken the word trans, which most people traditionally think of as transition from being a woman to a man or a man to a woman. That is the traditional definition of trans. That is what most trans people are. Most trans people are not queer Marxists. Okay? They're just normal people that are just trying to live their lives, that are just trying to, be happy and go to work and all that and have a family and all that stuff. When we're talking about queer theory and queer Marxism, their goal is to get people to transcend or transform gender. So when queer Marxists are saying trans, they are not saying it in the same way that transition people are. They're completely different. They want to transcend gender. They want to go above it. They want to transform it. And their ultimate goal is to get everyone to do that. So what you got to understand is that normal trans people that just want to transition from a man to a woman or a woman to a man, right now, they are not actually on the same team as queer Marxists. You are not on the same team as them as long as you want to maintain the gender binary, which is men and women. And if you want to maintain that construct that there are men and there are women and they are two different genders and they are different and they're innate and they are inherent, and there's no other, unless it's an extremely rare exception, there's no other option floating around, you're not on their team. So I think it's a mistake to assume that any trans person is a trans ally of the queer Marxist movement. That is just not true. That's why we need to stop conflating those terms. That's why we need to stop talking about them in the same sentence. It's not about removing the T from the LGB. It's about removing the Q from the LGBT. The T is fine as long as the T means transition, because anyone that wants to uphold the gender binary is on our team. They are our ally. Anyone that wants to abolish the gender binary is the enemy. And so calling them trans allies is actually giving the queer Marxists a win, because they want everyone to be on their camp of abolishing the gender binary. Let me know if that makes sense.
As well as for homeless queer youth. And when we also dive more deeply into what percentage of homeless queer youth represent the highest amount, it's actually Latinx queer youth.
You got it.
This is why this work is so important and why it is mandatory in New Jersey schools.
Oh!
Because folks, this kind of work saves lives. And let me show you. Let me give you some research that demonstrates that for you. The Trevor Project is an amazing organization, and every year they do work specifically on queer youth and their mental health. And what the Trevor Project found, based on a sample of 40,000 queer youth, is that LGBTQ plus youth that attend affirming schools had nearly...
Yeah, so Jotter Prime, what I'm going to recommend is actually, let me show you this. And this is true for anyone that might be newer to my work. I actually have a webinar, a 2-part webinar. I did the first part last night, but you can still access it. If you want to learn more about this, let me put this link in the chat. I highly, highly, highly recommend signing up for this live training I'm doing next week called How to Speak Socialist. Now, we just did level 1 last night, and it went really well, level 1. And if you didn't get it, if you've never done my How to Speak Socialist level 1 training, you can find this literally on the homepage of my Substack right now, but I just put the link in the chat on YouTube and Rumble. You can get access to the recording from last night, but next week we're doing a deep dive into queer Marxism. So I'm going to be going much more in depth on all of these explanations. You're going to see clips from actual training and stuff like that. So you can head over there. You can access the recording from level 1 by just like accessing the recording from last night. This will sign up, and like when you sign up, and you can sign up for free, you can make a donation if you want, but you can actually watch last night's recording, and then make sure you sign up for level 2, which is going to be next week. On Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's a live training, and you can come in and we're going to do a deep dive into queer Marxism and abolish the family. So thank you for asking such good questions, guys. I will always answer questions like that in the chat, so please feel free to come with those questions anytime. And of course, please make sure you share this information with people. The reason I spend time doing this is not just that I want to talk on the internet. It's that I want you guys to be able to learn so that you can then go and teach other people about this ideology. So sign up for the webinar. Come join us. If you can't make it live, that's okay. Sign up, and you will get access to the recording when it's done.
%40 lower odds of attempting suicide compared to queer youth who attend non-affirming schools. So get this, in the state of New Jersey, you are expected as an educator in any public school that the moment a student crosses into the threshold of the school, you believe them for who they tell you they are. You affirm them, regardless of parent knowledge or consent.
What?
The reason that is, folks,
hang on,
is because for many queer youth, the only place they have...
Hang on. What? So in New Jersey schools, the expectation is that when you walk into that school, you will affirm anything the child wants you to affirm, regardless of what the parents say or if the parents even know. Let's listen again.
So get this, in the state of New Jersey, you are expected as an educator in any public school that the moment a student crosses into the threshold of the school, you believe them for who they tell you they are. You affirm them, regardless of parent knowledge or consent.
All right, so now I want to go back. I want to go back to what Logan Lansing said in this comment earlier. We just saw in a gender affirmation training that teachers in New Jersey are required to affirm whatever the students want them to, regardless of if the parent knows, regardless of if the parent consents. Now, Logan Lansing says, imagine thinking you can summarize queer theory as abolishing capitalism and thinking this offers your audience any useful insight into defeating it. All right, Logan. If you had ever actually bothered to look at what I'm doing, Logan, in terms of showing people what queer Marxists and queer theorists and queer activists are saying in the real world, what you would have known, Logan, is that what I have been harping on for over a year and a half now is the attack that queer Marxists and queer activists have been making on parental rights in this country. It is the most important issue. It is the only issue that matters. They are actively destroying parental rights by going into the school system and requiring the teachers to subvert parental rights, to introduce gender ideology to children, and to affirm that the children are whatever non-binary gender fluid identity the students say they are, which inevitably they will have learned about in a Rainbow Club or a GSA that the parents don't even know they're in, because when they join the Rainbow Club or the Gender Sexuality Alliance that are in elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, the advisors to the Gender Sexuality Alliances say, don't tell your parents you're in this club because you're going to be in danger, and you're not going to be safe in your home if your parents know you're in this club, because they're not going to love you anymore if they know that you're queer. And so the kids never actually tell their parents that they're in the club. The club is teaching them that they're goddamn non-binary. The parents usually find out about it 6 months later when the kids start getting depressed and suicidal. You're telling me that teaching people that the goal of queer theory is to abolish the gender binary and the nuclear family, which is a direct attack on parental rights, because queer theorists, queer Marxists believe that parental rights are a form of private property, which means they are a form of capitalism, and queer Marxists want to abolish capitalism, which includes goddamn parental rights. You're telling me, you, the asshole who wrote an entire book about queer theory and didn't say capitalism once, you're telling me that what I'm teaching people isn't useful? Suck a dick, bro. Suck a dick. Your audience has no idea where these attacks on parental rights are coming from. Your audience has no idea how this relates back to Marxism. Your audience has no idea that in their school district right now, there are probably laws and policies on the books that were put there by queer Marxists with the help of people like the woman that we are watching today to chip away at parental rights. Bit by bit by bit by bit. Your audience has no fucking clue about this, and yet you want to prance around and act all high and mighty because you wrote a book about how queer theory is a Gnostic sex cult? Go fuck yourself, Logan. Go fuck yourself. You and James are leading millions of people off a goddamn cliff with this bullshit. And it is easily disprovable for anyone that actually bothers to watch the real world training. Do your research next time, Logan. Maybe you'll be able to write a book that's actually grounded in reality. That's all. Working out some feelings on the internet. Let's listen to that one more time, shall we? Just to be sure we heard it correctly.
Odds of attempting suicide compared to queer youth who attend non-affirming schools. So get this, in the state of New Jersey, you are expected as an educator in any public school that the moment a student crosses into the threshold of the school, you believe them for who they tell you they are. You affirm them, regardless of parent knowledge or consent. The reason that is, folks, is because for many queer youth, the only place they have that is affirming is school. And look at this, it saves lives. There's a 40% reduction in suicidality. That's huge. Then when we do think about how important the home is, based on a sample of 34,000 youth, the Trevor Project found that for trans and non-binary youth, and we'll go over what that means, when they lived in homes where everybody respected their pronouns, they committed suicide at 50% less of a rate compared to their trans and non-binary counterparts who didn't have their pronouns respected. So a pronoun, a name, it can be life-saving. Honoring that can be life-saving. Something else to consider when we think about something called intersectionality, which means if you're a person who holds more than one marginalized identity, let's say you are a queer person of color, what does that mean for your experience in this world? Well, the Trevor Project found, based on 28,000 youth, that if you take a look at this, 11% of white youth attempted suicide. This is white queer youth. Compared to, and look at the rest of that, those are all queer people of color. And look how much higher they are at risk for committing suicide. So folks, there's lots of evidence as to why this is so important. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go into what the SOGI identities mean, and again, why they are so important to learn. So SOGI, as I said, stands for sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. And the reason that learning about SOGI identities helps us become affirming is very simple. When we know better, we have a chance to do better, right? So I'm going to play a video for you now. And I'll tell you, this video is meant to be funny. And I've been showing this video for 6 years, and it still is such a relevant video. And I'm going to model for you gender inclusive language right now. The video is of two characters. There's a parent and a child. And it's called What the Sex Talk Looks Like Now, right? So if you
I
are
just saw
parent,
this.
If you ever had the sex,
I know exactly what video she saw talking about, because they literally showed this at that gender conference I went undercover at in Colorado. And the talk they showed it in wasn't that eventful, which is why I never talked about it. It was basically like how to talk to your queer kids about sex, but it was kind of like, it was actually kind of useful information that applied to all kids. So it wasn't that big of a deal, but I guarantee I know what video they're talking about.
Talk with your kiddo, what may that have looked like and what it looks like now. So feel free to chuckle. And all I'm going to ask at the end is, can you relate to either or both characters on the screen? Just please let me know if for some reason you cannot hear it.
Yep, same video.
Oh, hold on just a minute there, Buster.
Dad, I'm supposed to pick up Emily in like 10 minutes. I gotta go.
Well, Emily can wait for a little bit, can't she? You got a minute to talk to your old man, don't you? Have a seat. You know, son, you're not a kid anymore.
Oh, no. I go to health class, Dad. I already know all this stuff.
Well, they don't teach you about everything in health class. Okay, Mr. Smarty Pants? So just listen. When boys and girls get a little older, they start getting interested in one another, right?
You know, and non-binary people, agendered, intergendered, FTX, gender fluid people.
What?
There's more than just boys and girls now, Dad. And they're not girls. They're women.
Yeah, okay, sure. Well, my point is that sex is it's a very important decision.
How are you defining sex? Sex is different things to different people.
I guess when a penis goes into a vagina.
What if there's 2 men or 2 women or more?
More?
How would you define sex with multiple simultaneous partners? Or what if somebody's undergone genital reconstruction or is intersex?
No, but I'm just talking about normal, straight.
Normal? Come on, Dad.
Okay, here we go. Let me ask you this. Son, are you attracted to women?
Yes, but I'm young.
Is Emily a woman?
Biologically.
Okay, you're attracted to women. Emily's a woman. So if you were to have sex with Emily...
I wouldn't just have sex with Emily. We'd have to make that decision together. Homecoming's not an excuse to ignore consent.
I'm not saying to ignore consent. I never said ignore consent. You and Emily, right, consensually decide to have sex.
Vaginal?
Yes, vaginal.
Just 2 of us.
How many people do you want? Yes, just the 2 of you, Colin.
And I'm playing the traditional male role?
Go to homecoming.
You seem like you really wanted to talk about this.
No, I don't want to talk about anything ever again.
So I can go.
Please do. Out. Thank you. Don't forget your corsage.
Hey, Dad,
Yeah.
how do I look?
You look very handsome, son.
That's gender coding, but
Get out of my house. Have fun.
I still chuckle.
That is actually kind of a funny video, if we're honest about it. All right, I got a super chat from Tayton. Tayton says, Logan and Lindsay picking up all the dead cherries around the tree while Carlin works on axing down the tree. Well, you know what? Never send a man to do a woman's job. If Logan and James want to dick around and lie to their audiences and Pied Piper them off the goddamn cliff, it's okay. I'll fix it. It's fine. I don't mind. I'll just unteach all of James's audience all the bullshit that he's been teaching them for the past couple years with this Gnosticism shit. I'll do it. Could be doing any number of other things. Could be out living life. But no, here I am.
I love that one. I do. So tell me, would anyone care to share?
Stop the video, Stacy.
There we go. Okay. Anyone care to share their thoughts, or could you relate to either or both characters and why? There's no pressure to share.
Well, it seems to me the father was in a cave for a long time, that he had no idea of anything.
Yeah.
I'll share. I'm primarily an adolescent psychotherapist at an LSW and work at JFCS. And
good.
I'm the annoying kid telling everybody to use inclusive language and going into the doctor's office and marking up all the forms. And that's me. So I really identify with the kid.
Yeah. Thank you. So, what's interesting is, I've done this for thousands of adults, at this point. And, a lot of times, I get many, many folks, and, I'll be honest about my observations, right? Above a certain age, right? So I would say above 40, many folks who will say, I can totally identify with the parent. I'm afraid to even have a conversation with my kid because I don't know all the words that are out there. And that, many younger folks will say, I can identify with the kiddo and, what it's like to educate my own parents and guardians or adults in my space. And, of course, there are certain, times in which that doesn't, lend itself to truth. But I would say for the most part, that's what I observe across many audiences. So I think it's a nice segue into, if you're a person who kind of identifies with that parent and just feels like, I don't know what all of this means, then hopefully you'll feel a little bit more confident to have that conversation with the young person in your life at the end of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start with gender identity, because to me, that is the identity construct that has probably changed the most recently. So when we talk about gender identity, it's really made up of two very important components, and that is our assigned sex at birth as well as our inside identity. Okay, and I'm going to start with just assigned sex at birth and unpack that. So when you take a look at this baby and the person who births the baby, okay, and you may call that person a doctor, a midwife, someone else, and that person says it's a, how does that person determine? Feel free to throw it out there.
By looking at the genitals.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, how else can we determine sex? Think about other ways, kind of dust off your high school biology brain. What are other ways that we can determine?
Well, certain organs would be in certain places.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Certain organs would be in certain places.
Yes, excellent. So reproductive organs, right? Mm-hmm. Chromosomes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, So these are what we call primary sex characteristics. And technically there are 7, but I'm going to combine them into 4. All right. And we've got genitals, reproductive organs, chromosomes, and hormones. Now, I'm only going to speak from my own experience. As I said before, I'm 49 years old. When I learned this stuff, this is how it was taught to me. People either have a penis or a vagina. People either have testes or a uterus. People either have XX or XY chromosomes. Or when we talk about hormones, we talk about testosterone.
Listen, I want to be clear. I know we have a communist in here, but the rules of the chat, and he's following the rules right now. He was not following the rules earlier, but he is following the rules right now. The rules of my chat are don't be a dick. Do not insult me. Do not insult other people in the chat. I can do whatever I want because you're in my house. But while you're in my house, you will not insult me. You will not insult other people in the chat. And no whining. I just don't want to hear it. So if he's saying stuff like, I disagree with you, or like, you know, he's presenting different ideas, that's fine. The communist is allowed to do that as long as he's not a dick and he's not whining. He's allowed to be here.
Testosterone and estrogen. Did anyone else have a similar experience? You can just kind of raise your hand if you did. So I don't know about you, but I was never taught that these things actually exist on a spectrum. Okay, and that's an accurate representation of our biology. It doesn't exist as one or the other. Okay, so we know, in fact, that there are people, when we look at external genitals or internal reproductive organs, chromosomes and hormones, that don't fall only into male characteristics for those things or female only. And when I talk about that, I'm referring to folks who are intersex. So when we think about that growing acronym LGBTQIA, I stands for intersex. Okay, so let me define that for you. Intersex means that somebody is born with anatomy or genetics that don't fall into male only or female only. Okay, so folks can be assigned male, they can be assigned female, they can also be assigned intersex. So just to give you a sense, as of right now, we know in the medical community, there's about 42 different intersex variations. So what does that mean? Well, it means that somebody can have a penis, right? So an external male genital, but can also have a uterus, right? So an internal reproductive organ that's female. We know that somebody can have XXY chromosomes. We know that in the Dominican Republic, for example, there is a group called the Guevedoches, and they are typically born with what looks like female external genitals, right? What looks like a vulva. But when they go through puberty, that's when we start getting our secondary sex characteristics. They actually grow a micropenis.
What?
Okay, so the Guevedoches often.
Is that true? That there's a tribe that looks like women but then grow micro. What? Hang on. I need to hear this story again. I'm sorry. What?
We know that somebody can have XXY chromosomes. We know that in the Dominican Republic, for example, there is a group called the Guevedoches, and they are typically born with what looks like female external genitals, right? What looks like a vulva. But when they go through puberty, that's when we start getting our secondary sex characteristics. They actually grow a micropenis. Okay, so the Guevedoches often will.
Yeah, I saw that on TV. There was a documentary.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, there was a documentary.
So, Guevedoches will often, not always, but identify as male. So it's really important to understand that something that many of us were taught as very black and white, either or.
Bot says the Guevedoches, literally penis at 12, of the Dominican Republic are biological males, 46XY, with female appearing genitalia from birth until puberty. At puberty, they develop a penis and the testes. So That's gotta suck. I'm sorry. That's okay. I have nothing else to say about that. Let's just move on.
Isn't what biology is about, right? So even assigning sex is not so cut and dry and easy. We know that about 1 in 1,500 births results in a child who is intersex. Now, I can promise you that that is a statistic that is underrepresentative, right? Because there's so many folks that either don't know they are intersex or feel shame around that identity that don't share it. Now, folks, I also want to point out that that is the same exact statistic of people who are born with red hair. So you may know someone who is intersex. And, there are many folks who don't find out they're intersex until later in life, right? Because maybe they had a DNA test. Okay, so we know that there are many folks out there who are intersex. Any questions about that? Okay, so we just talked about one dimension of gender identity, right? We just talked about assigned sex at birth, which we know actually isn't that simple and easy, as many of us were led to believe. I also want to point out that in every single audience I've ever worked with, and like I said, I've done this for thousands and thousands of people at this point, not one audience has ever deviated. When I say, if a child is born and you say everybody says genitals, because in our society, we've been taught genitals equals gender, but we know that is not true. And that is something that we need to kind of step back from. But it takes a process of awareness and relearning. Okay, so many of us are conditioned to think that. Now, so I just went over assigned sex at birth. Now let me go over inside identity, which is the other necessary component of gender identity. And when we talk about our inside identity, it's our deep-seated, felt sense of gender, regardless of what our body might look like. So I'm going to ask you in the audience, when did you know you were your gender? At what age? Feel free to put it in the chat or say it aloud. Now, one thing I want to say,
I don't think there's any
I have no idea.
knowing.
Yes.
It just slipped in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And may I share with you that that is often what I hear. I don't know. I never thought about it. Right? That's your deep-seated felt sense of gender. If you just know, you.
Rottweiler says, this is a gotcha from queer activists, just like private versus personal property. Intersex are a genetic aberration and anomaly. The exception doesn't disprove the rule. Don't let them bamboozle you. That's a really good point, Rottweiler. Thank you for the super chat and for pointing that out. I do appreciate it.
Which is sometimes why I say, why don't we as adults believe kids who come out as trans at a very young age?
Because research tells us they grow out of it.
We really know by the age of 5 who we are.
Right.
So that's something to consider. Now, I'm going to go over some terms for you now. Okay. So when we think about gender, okay, we have folks who identify in the binary and folks who identify as non-binary. So what does that mean? Well, bi means 2. So binary means you identify as male or as female. People who identify as non-binary, they do not identify as male only or female only. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to break down some binary identities for you, okay? There are 2 words that are used to describe the relationship between your assigned sex at birth and your inside identity. And those words are cisgender and transgender. So when we talk about being cisgender or cis in Latin means the same. So when the sex you were assigned at birth is the same, or it matches who you feel you are on the inside, you may choose to identify as cisgender. Let me take myself as an example. I identify as a cis woman. It's totally fine for me to I'm cis, I'm a cis woman, I'm a cisgender woman, cis female, any of those variations is fine. What that means is that I was assigned female at birth. And do you see that acronym, AFAB? Many young people today will use AFAB and AMAB. When we even think about, when we talk to biology teachers and we say, what's some affirming language you can use? When you're teaching about the reproductive system, you could say the AFAB reproductive system. There's an acknowledgement there that not all folks who are AFAB, assigned female at birth, identify as such. So anyway, going back, as a cis woman, it means I was AFAB, assigned female at birth, and I identify as female. A cis man means that they are AMAB, and they identify with being male. Now, if cis meant the same, trans means in motion, okay? And again, remember, we're only talking about binary identities here.
Did you hear that? Trans means in motion. What a clever little twisting of it, isn't it? In motion. She didn't say trans means transition. She says trans means it's moving, as in it's constantly moving, as in it's constantly fluid, as in you don't go from point A to point B, you just keep moving. Let's listen to that a little bit again. I want you to hear what she did. I've never heard someone say this.
They are AMAB, and they identify with being male. Now, if cis meant the same, trans means in motion, okay?
Trans means in motion, not transition, in motion, fluid, constantly moving, constantly changing. Rottweiler says, also intersex manifests dominant female and male traits, hormonal panels, bone density, functionality of male and female reproductive organs, etc. Thank you for the super chat, Rottweiler. One more time, and then we're going to let this play.
And they identify with being male. Now, if cis meant the same, trans means in motion, okay? And again, remember, we're only talking about binary identities here. So we're only talking about people who identify as male or female. You can be a cis man, you can be a trans man. Okay, so transgender means that a person's sex assigned at birth does not match who they feel they are on the inside. Does not match. So, to give you an example, a person who identifies or may identify, a person who is assigned female at birth but does not identify as female. Okay, so again, there's no match. They may identify as a trans man. So a person who's assigned male at birth but does not identify as male may identify as a trans woman.
May.
So let me tell you the number one question I usually get, right? Or the thought process, if you're just learning about this. Many people who are just learning about this, when they hear trans woman, their first thought might be, well, wait a minute. Does that mean you started off as a woman or as a man? Do you start off with a penis? Do you have a vulva now? I want to give permission to the fact that when you're learning about this, you're trying to unpack what this means. It's okay to think those things, but here's what's not okay. It is not okay to ask somebody who's come out to you as trans about their genitals or how they started, right? Think about it. When you're affirming, you're believing in somebody for them telling exactly who you are at that moment. Here's the easiest thing you can do. Somebody says to you, I'm a trans woman. Take off trans and treat them like you would any other woman that you meet. It is that simple. You can also think of it this way. If somebody's a trans woman, they transitioned to female. Again, being affirming is absolutely treating them as female and not talking about how they may have started. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now we talked about binary identities, right? Lots of people identify in the binary. In fact, a majority of people do. But there are folks who also identify as non-binary. So what does that mean? Well, non-binary also falls under the transgender umbrella, right? To be trans simply means that you do not identify with what the person you were assigned at birth, the gender you were assigned at birth. So for some folks, they may identify as transgender, but they identify in the binary, right? Somebody may have been born male and they identify as a trans woman. That's a transgender identity, and it's a binary identity. But for some folks, they don't experience gender as only male or female, and it could mean lots of different things. So what you see under that right side of the umbrella as non-binary are many non-binary identities. So let me just go over a few of them. For some folks, being non-binary might mean that they feel both like they're male and female. For others, it might mean they feel neither male nor female. For others, they might feel like they exist somewhere in the middle, or that their experience of gender changes. For other folks, they might feel like I don't have a gender. There are so many non-binary identities out there, and people feel pressured, right, to know all of them. And the truth is, you don't have to, okay? Especially to be affirming to somebody, you don't have to. So here's just a few of them. And what do you notice that's common across these three non-binary identities?
You only have two choices.
Well, what I notice is that gender is the common theme here, right? Somebody could be gender queer, they can be agender.
No, but I was looking at either man or woman. There's nothing in between.
Oh. Wait, are we on the same slide though? Wait, I'm just making sure. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I mean, that's the thought that I have, that in our society, you have to be either a man or a woman. You can't be in the middle.
Oh,
the grandma is the best. Thank God for grandmas. Grandmas don't give an F. They're like, but there's only men and women. There's nothing in between. Let's just listen to that again.
Oh. Wait, are we on the same slide though? Wait, I'm just making sure. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I mean, that's the thought that I have, that in our society, you have to be either a man or a woman. You can't be in the middle.
Correct.
That is what I can say is that, you know, many of us grew up thinking of gender as binary only, as male or female. But we know that there are more than two genders. Right. And, you know, that's why we do a lot of this kind of work, right? Is to make space and to honor those who don't have a binary experience of gender.
Right.
Can you imagine what grandmothers are going to be like 50 years from now? Can you in 50 years we're going to have a metric ton of non-binary grandmothers? Like, can we just take a moment to vision how ridiculous the world is going to be in 50 years?
Yeah. But, you know, what I can say is that a lot of times if somebody says I'm gender something, it usually means that they have a non-binary identity. And as long as you know that non-binary means that person experiences gender not as male only or female only, you're in a great position to affirm who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Right.
Now, where I'm going to get now is that most important, conversation around pronouns, right? Because that's when pronouns, when we talk about pronouns other than he, him, or she, her, we are talking about often pronouns that non-binary folks may use. So what do we do with pronouns? Well, again, the first thing that we want to do with anybody who shares their pronouns is thank them for sharing them with us.
Thank you
and
for sharing your
if we can normalize sharing our pronouns, that would be super important.
Thank you.
Now, what do you do if a young person or anybody comes up to you and says, hey, I'd like to use different pronouns. So let's say you know somebody, you've previously known them as someone who uses she, her pronouns. And they say, I would like to start using he, him pronouns. After thanking them for trusting you with that information, the very next thing you want to do is ask for the parameters around that pronoun use. So what does that mean? Well, let's take a teacher and a student. Student comes up to the teacher and says, I'd like to start using he, him pronouns. Teacher should say, would you like me to use those pronouns when we're in class? Would you like me to use those pronouns when I talk with your parents or guardians? Would you like me to use those pronouns when we're around other teachers? You want to get a sense, because what we don't want to do is inadvertently out somebody. So it's super important that when you have somebody who shares that information with you, that that you respect whom you can share that information with. Now let's get to those they, them pronouns. So many folks have a hard time with using they, them pronouns as a singular, because we were taught that grammatically, when we say they, them, it means more than one person.
It does.
But I want to point something out. We've actually been using they, them as a singular throughout history. I've been on the street and I see somebody and I'm like, oh my gosh, they dropped their keys. And I'm talking about one person. We've often used it. But I recognize that grammatically we've been taught otherwise. So here's what I'm going to recommend, or here's what I'm going to say first. Since 2015, the dictionaries, starting with, I think, Webster's, approved the singular use of they, them.
Well,
Since
that
then,
changes
many
everything.
Formal
Here is my periodic reminder that everyone needs to go onto eBay, and what you need to do is buy a big ass old dictionary. When I say an old dictionary, I mean pre-civil rights movement dictionary. I have a giant ass dictionary that's about this thick sitting on my floor right over there that is from the 40s that I got off eBay. And like, that dictionary is never going to be changed. Doesn't matter. They can update the digital dictionary all they want. They can change the definitions of words without telling us all they want. I will always have a giant ass dictionary from the 40s where I can look up any word of what it was in the pre-civil rights era. There are tons of old dictionaries on eBay. Just go buy one. I have a dictionary floating around from the 90s too that someone sent me, which I do appreciate, but I still think the 90s is a little bit too late. And actually what I would really like is a nice old dictionary from like the 20s or even the early 1900s or things like that. But like, you want to have a print version of a dictionary. An old ass dictionary. Go to your local library when they're having book sales, see if they have anything. Like, libraries sell old books for like really, really cheap all the time. So maybe you could try that out. Like, but we need to start collecting these things. We need to start collecting like old school textbooks that used to teach that communism was like a bad idea. You can buy these things online. And that way, no matter what happens, it's kind of like we have to be like those people in like Fahrenheit 451 that were stockpiling print copies of books. Because the more that everything goes digital, the more opportunities they have to change shit. And once they change it in the digital copy, if you don't have the print copy, you never know that they changed it. So we need to be responsible, start collecting all these old books. Even if you don't want to, we have an obligation to do this to make sure that this knowledge survives.
Institutions have approved the singular use of they, them. So if you are somebody who's not comfortable using they, them for one person, my suggestion is to practice. First off, you use it grammatically the same way that you use it when you talk about more than one person. Okay, so let me give you an example. I know a kid named Gray, and they came out as non-binary, and so they started using they, them pronouns. And when they would come home from school, I would ask them, how was school today? And they would often tell me they were
Raise
kind
their
of tired
kid.
because so many people messed up their pronouns and they corrected everybody. And when they corrected everybody, people were so apologetic. But when you're somebody who has people use the wrong pronouns 15 times in a day, you feel exhausted by the end of the day, making everyone feel better about their mistake. There's an example of how to use they, them pronouns. So one suggestion I have is take 5 minutes a day, read any magazine you have in reach aloud, and change every pronoun to they, them. And you will get used to it. You will get used to it. I will tell you in some ways, what I call they, it's safe. I will often, when I'm working with young folks, use they, them as a default until I know otherwise. So Alana, let me ask you, was that helpful?
I'm not sure. I've tried to practice.
No, it was not.
I know somebody who's trans, and when I talk about this person, I say she when it should be he, and then I get mad at myself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you know what? Because you have really good intentions. Now, so let me take that as an example too. For many trans and non-binary folks, especially when they first come out, they often have a lot of grace and compassion for others, recognizing that it is something that people really need to think about. And so here's what I want to say. When you make a mistake, because you will, the best thing you could do is apologize only once. And from there on out, make the correction and move forward. People are used to being misgendered, especially folks who are in the process of kind of educating the people around them, or folks who, are transgender. When you spend a long time saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I keep trying. It's
No, that's making it worse. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do that because they do genuinely feel terribly, right? So, but the best thing you could do is just make the correction and move forward. And it's okay to make those mistakes. And the more you practice, you will get it. I promise you.
Well, you gotta ask the like button.
It was
Joseph.
difficult for me at first too. And now it just kind of rolls off my tongue. So it definitely is one of those practice things. Now, I do also want to describe to you, what do you do if somebody uses multiple pronouns? Because some people might say, hey, I use she, they pronouns. Here's what I can tell you. What I typically do is when somebody says that, I use both of those pronouns interchangeably. Okay? I also am fine with asking the person, would you rather me use she more than they, or do you want me to use them equally? Okay, so either way, this is a way to be really affirming. Make sense? You might have some people who say, I use all pronouns. Great. Sure, I'll use them. So for those of you who are newer to it and make the mistakes, give yourself some grace and keep practicing. You will get it.
Okay.
Hang on. Heather says, all the people I've had suspicions of, we're right. Heather, I'm not sure I understand. Oh, are you saying I was right about the LPNH? I heard about something like, did they do something else racist? Because I kind of heard inklings of it today, but I wasn't really paying attention. All the people I've had suspicions of, you were right. What did they do? Listen, to be really clear, I haven't been involved with the LPNH in over a year now, ever since they wrongly removed the rightfully elected chair of the party over and the person they removed is a friend of mine and is a really good friend of my husband's, and over a goddamn Twitter account. So I am not involved in any of the LPNH bullshit. So I disavow whatever the fuck they did. I don't keep up on it anymore. The party doesn't even exist in New Hampshire anyway. Anyway, Alex, thank you for being a member of the channel for 3 months. Carlin is right on this one. I literally just hopped on eBay and ordered a Webster's International Dictionary published 1919. Good find, Alex. And look, Alex is wearing the whiteness means capitalism shirt. Holy shit. I was thinking about bringing that shirt back to the store. I really like it and I want a hoodie. And so I was thinking about bringing that back. It was a limited edition, but I might bring it back. I don't know. We're going to see. I have a shit ton of stuff to launch in the store. It was supposed to launch the other day before May 1st, but like I forgot it was May, everyone. So if I owed you anything on May 1st, or if I was supposed to launch anything on May 1st, I just want to say it's coming. I just forgot. I even forgot to pay Joshua. Like I forgot. Like I forgot it was May. Okay. I forgot. I'm sorry. I don't know how to read a calendar. There's a lot of stuff that I'm going to be doing over the next couple days to make up for the fact that I should have launched it on May 1st. I'm sorry. Yeah, I apologize for whatever the LPNH did. I don't know what they fucking did. All right, let's just keep going. All right. Can I make the whiteness hoodie in white with black letters? I mean, maybe. That would actually probably look pretty badass, honestly.
Hopefully.
Okay, so we're just about done with gender identity. That's how big it is. And I want to talk to you about folks who are transgender and or non-binary, folks who do not identify with the sex they were assigned at birth. And what that might mean for those folks is that they have to transition in some way. Now, there are what I'm going to say are 3 kind of categories of transitioning, and that is social, legal, and medical. And just so you know, trans folks, there's no one way to transition. And not all trans folks want to transition in all different ways, right? So there's no one way to do this. What I can say is that for many trans folks, the first thing they do is socially transition. And what that means for some folks is maybe they change their name, maybe they change their pronouns, maybe they change the way that they look or express their gender to the world. It may be a combination of that. And they may stop there because some folks socially transition and feel great and they feel like they're living an affirmed life and and they don't decide to go any further, and that's fine. Some folks will legally transition, which means that all their legal documents now will be changed to their affirming name and or their affirming gender. I'm very happy to say that New Jersey is one of the best states in which to legally change one's name. We have the fewest hoops a person needs to jump through. And when we think about access, it used to be costly because people had to have an attorney to go through the process. And now, since 2019, the Babs-Sipperstein law was passed, allowing for legal transition to occur for youth with the permission of their parents or guardians for as little as $6. Right now, if you were to start the legal name change process, it would take about 3 to 6 months, and you can do it without an attorney. Right now, if you were to give birth tomorrow in the state of New Jersey, you can have X as your gender marker on your birth certificate.
Oh, good.
And then finally, medical
Nothing can
transition.
go wrong with that.
And again, one of the myths is that all trans folks want to medically transition, and that is not true. But medical transition requires some form of medicine to either stop growth or promote growth in an affirming way, right? So for young folks who come out before the age of puberty, they may decide as they approach puberty to go on puberty blockers. And what this simply does is it pauses puberty to give people more time to secure who they are in their gender. And folks, just so you know, this is not like an overnight decision. I have many parents who will say, that's such a huge decision for a young person to make. Well, there's lots of stopgaps in the medical world to really, ensure that people are psychologically ready to kind of pause puberty blockers. The same is true for hormone replacement therapy, right? So, a person who may be assigned male at birth and who identifies as female may go on estrogen. And, that will, promote certain, let's say, breast growth and other effects. And for some folks, they want to transition surgically. That might be removal of breasts. It might be, bottom surgery. When we also think about those do's and don'ts, lots of trans folks have people totally invade their privacy within the first 5 minutes of meeting them by asking about their genitals and if they've had surgery. So the same rule of etiquette applies. If you are somebody who's cisgender, I ask, do you ever ask somebody in the first 5 minutes meeting them, or even longer, about their genitals, right? And if they've had surgery? And I would bet the answer is no. So I would ask to apply the same etiquette for somebody who's trans. How are we all doing, folks? There's a lot of information to take in.
No, it's great. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right, so we just finished gender identity. Holy cow, that is a big one. So let's move on to gender expression. Much easier to wrap your brain around.
Hang on, Tayton says, amazing to hear this lady talk with such conviction and as if all this is widely accepted. Well, that's the key, Tayton. As long as you speak with confidence, most people will think that everything that you're saying is the total and complete truth, and they won't question you. It's a good lesson to learn.
But it confuses people, and I'll tell you why. Gender expression is very simply the ways in which we express our gender to the world. And that looks different for everybody. For some people, it's the clothes that you choose to wear, the way you walk, the way you talk. It could be a number of things. And just like everything else we're talking about, it really should be put on a spectrum in that people can vary with how they like to express their gender. They can vary from masculine to androgynous to feminine. And I want to point something out to you. And I let me first start with a warning. This is meant to be illustrative. It's not meant to be offensive. Okay. But again, I'll take my own experience. When I was growing up, if I saw somebody who was male and who presented in a very effeminate way, I made the assumption that he was gay. And that assumption
And they
is way
always
incorrect.
were.
Okay. I can tell you very often still, people confuse gender expression as an indicator of sexual orientation. And that is inaccurate, right? How we decide to look or what we look like has nothing to do with who we love. Okay, so that's really important to
Sin
to
is
know.
cool old lady gender.
Something else that's important to know when we talk about the relationship between gender expression and identity, it's important to recognize that sometimes they match and sometimes they don't. So you see 3 pictures on the
I bet Harry Styles is awful in bed. Like really, really, really. Like I wouldn't know. I don't care how much money he has. It would just be like, I'm right about this, right? Like it would be a really unsatisfactory experience. Ugh, Trendolin! Aren't you unemployed? Why are you bribing me to watch the Penguin video? All right. We'll watch the Penguin video at the end. That way, everyone who doesn't want to watch the Penguin video can leave. And you don't have to watch it. We'll watch it at the end, okay?
screen. Okay. Those 3 pictures are of cisgender men. And they all present their gender in different ways, right? And those ways may vary. So the reason we want to share pronouns with people is we want to reduce the assumptions people make about our gender identity with based on how we look, right? So I don't want to just look at your face in the screen and say, oh, this person has long hair, and I think long hair means you're a woman, and let me just make an assumption that they're a woman. This is why we share pronouns, is so we reduce the assumptions that we make based on what someone looks like. Now, for many folks, it can be confusing. They can see somebody who looks male and is wearing a dress, and they don't quite know what to do. So again, that's why it's affirming a lot of times to ask somebody their pronouns, but also to make space and hold space if they're not comfortable to share those pronouns.
No, I do not.
All righty. Now we're going to move on to sexual orientation. And I'm going to venture to guess that
hard pass.
Y'all are most comfortable with what sexual orientation is because, frankly, it's been in the national dialogue a lot longer. When we talk about sexual orientation, it's about our attraction to other people. And
I don't actually disagree with this, Heather. In fact, so last night on Twitter at around 3 a.m. or so, libs of TikTok tweeted out this video of a conservative that was in the bathroom with a trans person. And it looked to my eye, based on what we saw in that video. And listen, man, I've been in gender neutral bathrooms. I've been in bathrooms with men, not men dressed as women or not trans women, but with actual men that were just using and it's a weird experience. And I'm not gonna lie about that. It's very jarring to walk out of the bathroom stall and see a full blown dude. So I get it to a certain extent. But this video that Libs of TikTok shared yesterday was like a trans woman on a college campus that was literally just leaving the bathroom and nothing had happened. They'd gone in, they used the bathroom, they left. You guys can have all the feelings you want about that. But a conservative took out their phone and decided to confront the trans woman about why they were using the bathroom. And the trans woman was like, I'm going to the bathroom. And then the woman was like, but why do you feel like you have a right to be in here? And did it. And reading this person, the riot act, and the trans person was kind of like, oh, we're going to do one of these, are we? And I can kind of understand that perspective. And then the trans woman was just really polite, quite frankly, and was like, I'm sorry you feel that way. And then just left. And they just politely walked out. And I was like, do conservatives really not understand how shitty they look when they do stuff like this? I'm sorry, you don't need to agree with it is not the trans person's fault that the university has certain policies around bathroom use. I'm sorry, it's just not. And it's just to watch the trans person be kind of you could see it was oh, they really do hate me. That conservatives that was filming that trans woman in the bathroom just confirmed to that trans woman that conservatives really do hate all trans people. And it was so bad. It was they just kind of they hung their heads and they were just okay, and then they just walked out without saying anything or without defending themselves. And I was like, do you guys not understand that you look like bullies? It was disgusting. And so I retweeted that and I basically said, you are the asshole in this situation. The trans person was perfectly polite. You are the asshole in this situation. And the replies that I got to that from conservatives, I blocked so many people. I was actually yesterday thinking about Elon Musk announced that there was going to be this thing where you can just automatically unblock all the people you've ever blocked on Twitter. And I was seriously thinking about it. I was like, maybe I should just unblock everyone I've ever blocked on Twitter. I've been blocking a lot of people for years. Some of them were a long time ago. Maybe I should just offer a general amnesty. And then last night, seeing the responses from these conservatives who were defending, bullying trans people who aren't doing anything wrong, I was like, well, what is your handle, Heather? I'll unblock you. I don't really care. You're having sense, but it was so disgusting and it was so gross. And it was bro, you're not even acting like a human being. And you think this is going to win people over to your side? I was really just really, really, really disgusted by it. Really disgusted by it. Yeah, they're harassing all the kids that are protesting. It's a lot of people's true colors are being shown and they all think that they're gonna win in November. They all think that everyone who voted for Trump in 2020 is just gonna trot right back to Trump because Biden is so awful. Who else are you gonna vote for? And it's no, I don't actually have to vote for Trump. I'm sorry, I don't. Not with your behavior. No. I don't support you. Anyway.
You may notice here that when we talk about attraction,
right,
it's
I'll
on
unblock
many
you.
different
Hang
levels.
on.
It's not
I'll do it
just
right now.
sexual attraction. So that's one of the myths of sexual orientation is that it's just about sexual attraction. It's not. It's about romantic attraction, psychological or emotional, attraction. It's beyond sexual attraction. So let's play the game. Here you see some stickers up here. Can you do your best and take a stab at identifying or defining what it means to be a lesbian?
A cis woman who's attracted to other women.
Oh, I love that you added cisgender to that. That is so close to correct. Super close. Can anyone make an adjustment to that to make it 100% correct?
You're not blocked.
Any
I don't
woman
see you
who's
being
attracted
blocked.
to another woman, regardless of cis or trans status.
Yes. And right, said another way, it's someone who identifies as a woman who's attracted to another person who identifies as a woman. Absolutely. Now, all of that doesn't fit on my sticker. So
wait. They just defined lesbian. They just defined a lesbian as someone who identifies as a woman who is attracted to someone else who identifies as a woman. So what that means is you can have two people with penises that do not identify as men that would be lesbians even though they have penises.
another way, it's someone who identifies as a woman who's attracted to another person who identifies as a woman. Absolutely. Now, all of that doesn't fit on my sticker. So I have women who experience attraction to women. Okay. Bisexual.
They can go either way.
Well, yeah. So that is the historical definition.
Oh, that's
of
changed now too.
bisexual. It's being attracted to a man or to a woman, right? Going either way, either suggesting there's one or the other. But let's think of an updated version now.
Well, I know there are people in their lifetime,
Updated version
it's not
of
that they're
bisexual.
stuck in one direction. They go back and forth.
Yep. Totally true.
Yeah.
Yep. When we think about it, though, we know that there's more than two genders, right? We know that there's more than male or female. So the new definition of bisexual is attraction to two or more genders.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I'm not going to make you work for gay. Gay is men who experience attraction to men. But I also want to talk about how language changes over time. Gay is also now used as an umbrella term for same-sex attraction. So I'm a lesbian, but a lot of times I prefer to say I'm gay. Okay. All righty. Let's do this next one. Asexual. Anyone have an idea?
Someone with no
Oh,
sexual
sorry, you're gonna hear
attraction.
my dog in the background.
Not attracted to either sex, men or women, I guess.
Wait, say it again. Not attracted to
Not
what?
attracted to men or women, or to nobody, maybe.
Ah, close. You are super close. It's a person who does not experience sexual attraction, right? So A means without. So it's without sexual attraction. Remember how we said, sorry, I've got dogs in the background. They're starting to want to play. Remember how we said that sexual orientation is about lots of different types of attraction, right? It could be sexual, it could be romantic, it could be emotional. So somebody who is asexual, they may not experience sexual attraction to someone else. They may, however, experience romantic attraction. Okay. So these are actually called ace identities, ACE. Somebody might say I'm ace. A young person might say that, and that means they're asexual. There are actually lots of ace identities. So for example, somebody could be aromantic. That might mean that they don't experience romantic attraction to another person, but they experience sexual attraction. So now what I called that growing up was friends with benefits, right? You didn't romantically want to partner with them, but you kind of wanted to fool around. Okay, so it's just another example. Okay, try to define straight without using the word opposite. By the way, I love seeing people's heads explode when I ask that question.
That's tough.
All right, I'll save the suspense, right? So originally, right, because we lived in a very binary society, it was I'm attracted to a person of the opposite sex. But because we know there's more than two genders, it's attraction to a gender different than your own.
All right, so now clip it.
Okay, and then finally, pansexual.
So again, hang on. Again, with straight. So if the definition of straight is attracted to a gender that is different from your own, you could have two people who were both born with penises, and one of them identifies as a trans woman, and one or a non-binary. Actually, let's go with that example. You could have two people that are born with penises, and one of them identifies as non-binary, and one of them identifies as a woman, but they both have penises, but they're considered to be straight because it is an attraction to a gender that is different from your own. And so a man a person who was born with a penis that is non-binary and a person that was born with a penis that is a woman can be attracted to each other, and they would be considered straight. Do I have that right? That's the new math. That's the anti-racist math.
Anyone want to give me a guess on pansexual?
That's gay.
So everything, I guess.
Excellent. 2 stars for out there. Yep. Right. Pan means all. So it's attraction to all folks, regardless of how they identify. Now, do I have any fans of the show Schitt's Creek? Anyone see the show Schitt's Creek? Such a great show. I love this clip, this video clip, because let me set the stage for you. And again, I'm going to use gender inclusive language. The two characters you're going to see on the screen, they just had sex the night before, and they're in a liquor store and they're talking about their experience. Okay. And this is a great way to define what it means to be pansexual.
Something about my reactions to Sally.
Okay.
So, just to be clear, I'm a red wine drinker.
That's fine.
Okay, cool. I only drink red wine.
Okay.
And up until last night, I was under the impression that you too only drank red wine. But I guess I was wrong.
I see where you're going with this. I do drink red wine, but I also drink white wine. And I've been known to sample the occasional rosé. And a couple summers back, I tried a Merlot that used to be a Chardonnay, which got a bit complicated.
Okay, yeah, so you're just really open to all wines.
I like the wine and not the label. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So there you go. I like the wine and not the label. I love that.
Muted.
Great definition of what it means to be pansexual.
We wanted to.
I'm muted.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, it looks like it. I don't know.
The boomers are figuring out how to mute themselves.
All right. So this is a nice segue into what labels mean in the queer community. I know a lot of parents and guardians will often say, why do we label so much? Labels are really important, especially for young kiddos who are going through identity development, right? It's part of who they are. But I would say that uniquely in the queer community, labels serve as a way to find community. So let's think about it. People who are born into other marginalized communities often share the same identity with their family. Not always, but often, right? So let's take a person of color. Oftentimes, they're born into a family of color and they understand each other's experiences. But for queer folks, a lot of times, they may be the only person in their family who's queer. And so those labels serve as a conduit, as a way to meet other folks. Okay, so we have gotten through our first two goals, and we're going to end with our last one, which is
15
what does
minutes
this
left.
mean for youth, and why do we focus on youth in particular? Again, being affirming is great for everybody, hands down. But what I'm going to show you right now are, again, statistics, and this is taken from GLSEN, which is a national organization. Every 2 years they do
which is a
research
leftist
on queer
organization.
youth throughout the United States. And their most recent research was based on a sample of about 23,000 kiddos. Okay. And here's what they found. Okay, so I'm just rounding up with the sample size of 23,000. They found, okay, that schools are hostile places for queer students. Now get this, homophobic and negative remarks made about gender expression by teachers, these remarks have been made by teachers. They increased from 2019 to 2021. What's happening there? Okay, we also know that 52% of queer students who said that they were thinking about dropping out of school reported a hostile school climate as their reason for dropping out. And then finally, 72% of queer students said that they were never exposed to queer topics in any of their classes. Now, folks, something I can tell you as a lifelong educator is that we always say curriculum should be filled with windows and mirrors, windows that you can look through to understand other people's experiences, as well as mirrors that reflect your own. And when we think about it, when queer kids don't ever see themselves showing up in a curriculum, showing up in media in a positive way, that affects them, right? You want to be able to, you want as a 5-year-old, when your teacher's reading you a picture book of all different types of families, you want to see your family represented there. Now, when these 23,000 queer kids were asked, which of your identities make you feel most unsafe at school? By the way, this is only a snapshot. This is a longer list. Look at the highest number. One or more of SOGI identities was the reason that kids felt unsafe at school, followed closely by mental health, and followed closely by body size or weight. Okay. Now, what's interesting, folks, is that we use at High Tops the local school climate survey when we work in local schools. And it's the same survey as what's used for the national survey. We replicate these results. These are often the top 3 classes of identities in which people feel most unsafe at school. Now, not surprisingly, when they ask the kiddos, which spaces do you feel most unsafe? It's the gendered spaces. It's in bathrooms, it's in locker rooms, it's in PE class. So when we think about the importance, for example, of a gender neutral bathroom, that's huge. You know how many queer kids get urinary tract infections because they don't go to the bathroom at school because they don't have a safe bathroom to go to, or the only bathroom they have to go to is the nurse's office, which automatically outs them, right? So thinking about it, I know kids who won't use public bathrooms because they've been thrown out of them because people will look at them and based on what they look like, will say, you're in the wrong bathroom. I promise you, when trans folks use the bathroom, they just want to pee and feel safe. So when we look at the statistics of how many queer kids are being harassed at school, look at those numbers. Think about physical harassment alone, 22%. So that's 4,900 queer kids are saying they're being physically harassed at school based on their sexual orientation. Think about the myriad negative effects that happen because of that. So what happens when you're a kid that's getting beat up at school? Well, you're afraid to go to school. So we see for queer kids, higher rates of dropout, higher rates of anxiety and depression, lower rates of going to college, and the effects go on and on. Now, here's what we do know. Since mandates have come about, right? So since 2018 in the state of New Jersey, schools, public schools are mandated to have education that reflects queer identities and safe spaces. We see that when you know better, you do better. Here's what this graph is showing you. That when a kid goes to a school, a queer kid goes to a school that has an inclusive curriculum, meaning they see themselves alive in the curriculum, they hear fewer negative remarks made about them. That's what this graph is showing you, right? So the dark blue is if you're a queer kid that goes to a school that's not inclusive, you hear more negative remarks. But if you go to a school that's more inclusive, you hear fewer negative remarks. It makes a difference. Here's another thing, right? More examples. If you're a queer kid that goes to a school that has a GSA, which is often a gender sexuality alliance, a club for you, you also tend to hear fewer negative remarks. This next graph is showing, now this is profound. As those bars go down, okay, what that is showing you is if you're a queer kid that attends a school that has policies that protect you based on your SOGI identities, you experience less victimization. Again, that's huge. So folks, just so you know, there are many states in the United States that, you know, when you hear about harassment, intimidation, and bullying policies, they're called HIB policies. There are many states that do not include protections for kids based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. So there's protections based on race, religion, but not gender, not sexual orientation. So how are we protecting these kiddos? Okay, so as I said, you know, we are very much a youth-centered organization, youth-informed. And I think it's important always to leave you with comments and insights taken directly from our youth verbatim. So when we asked our support group kiddos, and I'll read this aloud for you, at a minimum, what do adults need for training? This is what they said. I wish adults at least understand what a spectrum is and that everything's not black and white. Even if you don't understand what it means to be gender fluid, if you can understand that gender is on a spectrum, it will help us kind of meet in the middle.
When kids are learning this, are saying, I wish adults knew what gender fluid was. Where do you think they learned what it means to be gender fluid? No one just inherently understands gender fluid, gender queer, gender is a spectrum. Where do people think they learn that? Does anyone have any ideas? Did they learn it at home? Because apparently those parents don't know what it means to be gender fluid. So where did they learn it from? They learned it in the schools. They learned it from their teachers. They learned it from the adults. They learned it in the public schools.
Absolute very least, adults should be trained to use pronouns every day with everyone, not just LGBTQ plus people. Normalize asking for pronouns. Normalize not assuming one's pronouns. The most important thing they need to know, even if they don't remember anything else, is to respect identity. You don't have to get it. Like gender is confusing for adults. That's okay. Just respect when I tell you who I am. Use the name I give you. Use the pronouns I give you.
Just do it. Just do it. Just go along with it.
When
Don't
we
question
asked,
it. Just do it.
Again, the same kiddos. How can adults or how can people be a good ally? I wish adults were trained not to accept homophobic comments. Don't laugh it off or say he's just joking. I wish trainers could help adults be upstanders instead of bystanders. I think adults should practice accepting things they don't understand. I know it might be too hard to learn everything the LGBT community knows. I don't expect everyone to understand me and where I'm coming from. I know it's hard. It's hard for me too, but that doesn't mean I'm looking for attention or lying. It costs $0 to respect someone instead of fight them. I wish people could just be comfortable with queer people. Just treat me like I'm a normal person. Don't ask if I'm hitting on you. I'm not. I'm always being cautious and making sure I don't make anyone uncomfortable. I wish I didn't have to have so much anxiety about that. I wish people could just treat me normal. The best allies to me are the people that know that being gay is just one part of me. And then finally, it takes a lot of energy and emotional strain to educate people about why I deserve to be treated equally. If you're asking a simple question, try Googling it first instead of asking the only queer person you know. And respect me if I don't have the brain power to talk about my experience being non-binary. It's inspirational for you, but it's draining and traumatic for me. Okay, so now that you know, what are some things that you can do? So the first thing I would say is taking stock, right? So take stock of the assumptions, take stock of the extent to which you use gendered language. Take 5 minutes in a day and kind of keep it at the forefront of your mind. And then once you get a sense of how often you use gendered language, see if you can start reducing it. The other thing is to take stock of the assumptions you make about SOGI identities, right? Because like I said, we all make assumptions. The best way to reduce them is by first gaining awareness. And then also maybe take stock and maybe have an ongoing commitment to studying, learning, and having an open mind. Other things that you can do right now is you can normalize introducing yourself with pronouns. You can start including pronouns on a Zoom call, right? So notice I have my pronouns. I see some others do. Maybe include it in your email signature. In fact, I also have in my email signature a little hyperlink that says, why do I use pronouns? And you can click on it and read like 3 sentences on it.
She's the second person.
Think about advocacy.
She is the second person I've heard this week say this. There was another guy who said it in that queer liberation conference we did the spy stream on last week, where not only are they putting their pronouns in their bio, but they're also giving you a link for more information about pronouns, just in case you don't understand why they're using pronouns in their bio.
If you're somebody who is an ally to the queer community, can you look around and advocate? Here's something that's great to look for: a safe space sticker. You might see this in many doctor's offices now, right? This is just signaling to folks that this is a safe space for you. Do you have them in the building in which you're working?
Even conservatives want a safe space.
See. Okay. So what I want to leave you with is my information, should you have, and these are my colleagues' addresses, email addresses as well. And also this is a link to a survey that you can take and let us know how we're doing. It's anonymous. We definitely take your feedback very seriously, so we welcome that. And I want to thank you for your time tonight. And I stopped with about 5 minutes left, just in case there are any questions, comments, or concerns. And I also just want to say that we can send you some stickers if you'd like, just so you know. So if somebody, Beth, I think you were our contact person. And so Beth, if you want to let Thomas know, he can send you some stickers. And just so you know too, we're going to send a resource packet with a summary of everything we went through tonight, as well as additional resources for learning. And you can always feel free to get in touch with us if you have anything that you're processing afterwards and you have more questions. So, again, I want to thank you. And if you don't have any questions, then feel free to take the survey.
All right. That's basically it. There's only 1 more minute, so I'm going to assume there's no Q&A. All right. Nice to see you again, Stacy. I remember you from last time. Don't think I didn't get any clips this time, because I did. As a reminder, guys, please make sure you mount the like button on the way out the door. We got a couple more orders of business. We are going to play the Penguin song. So if you don't want to hear the Penguin song, we're going to do that at the end. That's going to play us out for tonight. But I do want to remind everyone that we do have Socialism Saturday tomorrow night. Saturdays at 6 p.m. where we will watch the hardest of the hardcore socialism. Actually, something I'm thinking about watching is actually going on right now. It is a People's Forum NYC live presentation with Ruth Wilson Gilmore about abolition and activism based on what's going on with the college campuses. So we'll have to see. I'm going to look around, see if there's anything else good for Socialism Saturday, but we will be doing that at 6 p.m. tomorrow, not 5 p.m., 6 p.m., because it's my Saturday too, okay? And I have other stuff I need to do on Saturdays, but we will be doing that tomorrow. As a reminder, guys, if you do want to support the work I'm doing, head over to my Substack, which is Carlyn, Karlyn, .substack.com, and sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. I am about to start a membership drive because I am completely supported by people just like you. And if I don't have people like you supporting me, I can't do undercover journalism. I can't do these in-depth projects that I want to do. There's so much stuff that I want to do. I cannot believe this is May. There is so much stuff that we've got going on in the community with the Zine Project, with the Unwoke Underground, with the Unwoke Wiki. There's so much stuff I want to do. But I need your guys' help in order to be able to do it because I don't have any big dollar value donors. This is how I'm able to tell you the truth, regardless of how anyone on the internet, including James Lindsay, feels about it. So if you appreciate what I'm doing, head over to the Substack, sign up, $8 a month, $80 a year. I really do appreciate it. And we got a lot more coming in the next week, so stay tuned. And we do have to end because I promised that we would with the goddamn fucking Penguin song. All right. If you have never heard the Penguin song, you're in for a treat. This is a video that is used in elementary schools and middle schools all over the country to teach people about gender identity. Your children have probably seen this video in schools. I'm not joking about that. So let's watch the video to illustrate how the public schools are teaching your kids to be non-binary. And if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to. But this will play us out, okay? This will play us out.
No matter how you're born, we each have a style. I'll tell you in a while exactly what I like.
Ariana and Renee, they both are born girls. They go into their changing rooms. Ariana loves twirls. That's not for Renee. Pink will not do. All girls don't wear dresses. They wear pants too. Has Renee lost her mind? What's running through her head? Ariana can fix this. No is what she said.
When you put it on, you do a little groove. You know you've got to move. That's how you know you've got it right.
This is me, who I am. See me in full colors, me like no other. Originality.
No matter how you're born, we each have a style. I'll tell you in a while exactly what I like.
Bryce and Jason, they both are born boys. They go into their changing rooms. Bryce jumps out with joy. Jason has a different idea. The sweater is where it's at. Bryce has to fix this. Here, try this or that. Wait just 1 second. Don't tell him how to dress. Ariana knows this. Only Jason can express.
This is me, who I am. See me in full colors, me like no other. Originality.
No matter how you're born, we each have a style. I'll tell you in a while exactly what I like.
Darla and Charles, one girl and one boy. They go into their changing rooms. Charles is feeling coy. Others are thrilled with the look, but Charles is quite unhappy. Let's try this again. Yeah, this is snappy. Some are confused. They just don't understand. Charles, now Charlotte is certain. Ariana's her biggest fan. Some might keep their distance, but others will come around. Come on over, Darla. Show us what you found. Darla had something on, but is not quite convinced. She wants to try again, yet she still gives a wince. Nope, not right either. Why can't she decide? Sometimes it takes time, only she can find her stride. Darla presents an outfit. The new name is Darren. Now everything feels right. The person within he's sharing.
When you put it on, you do a little groove. You know you've got to move. That's how you know you've got
colors me like no other. Originality.
Here we have Skylar, born a boy or girl. Not interested in the girl look. Won't give the boy look a whirl. Skylar wants a new path, and it isn't one of those. This is a unique look from Skylar's head to toe.
When you put it on, you do a little groove. You know you've got to move. That's how you know you've got it right.
This is me, who I am. See me in full colors, me like no other. Originality, who I am. See me in full colors, me like no other. Originality.